conversation. No, I'm not your type of baby. Listen, I'm just saying. We can rule the world, just me and you, if you quit playing. Won't you take that chance with me and have that conversation? I just wanna have that conversation with you. Come and talk to me. I just wanna have that conversation with you. Look, see, we vibing and you know it's true. Baby, what it do? Do for me and I'ma do for you. No doubt about it, boo. See, I'm a Midwest king, looking for myself a queen. Ready to chase a dream with a dope self-esteem. You find it in all I know, and that's for real. You get to shaking that ass on the floor, and I see what's real. No disrespect, I just tell it like it is. Do you ever want some kids? What your ultimate goals? Maybe I can help with those. The mo was broke when he made you a blessing. You looking like a whole buffet, and I need some seconds. You say you have promiscuous ways, that was back in the day. I'll be a lie if I say I did it. That shit was a phase. So baby, take this journey with me. You can pick the time and place. This nigga isn't picky. Smile on your face, I know the deal. Sign and deliver after seal. I can see it in her eyes. This one right here for real. I just wanna have a conversation. No, I'm not your type of baby. Listen, I'm just saying. We can rule the world, just me and you, if you quit playing. Won't you take that chance with me and have that conversation? I just wanna have that conversation with you. Come and talk, yeah. I just wanna have that conversation with you. Lady, you so far ahead of these others, just like a ship on the horizon. Picking up on your vibe, signal stronger than Verizon. All the thoughts that I've been contemplating, ain't no time for faking or debating. You the one, ain't no mistaking. Look, I see you swag different. Always carry yourself like you ready, you know the mission. I had to know you, I'm 10. I can see why you timid. Hold up now, baby, listen. Just take that dance with me, I can show you that there's a difference. I'm locked in. I throw away my playaways because you pop in. A shooter always shoot a shot. With you by my side, I guarantee we'll reach the top. I put that on God and then I give you all that I got. So baby, take this journey with me. You can pick the time and place, this nigga isn't picky. Smile on your face, I know the deal. Sign and deliver after seal. I can see it in her eyes, this one right here for real. I just wanna have a conversation. No, I'm not your type of baby. Listen, I'm just saying. We can rule the world, just me and you, if you quit playing. Won't you take that chance with me and have that conversation? I just wanna have that conversation with you. Come and talk, yeah. I just wanna have that conversation with you. Come and talk to me.
Welcome to the Behind Them Sticks podcast, brought to you by TSWS Game.
Come and talk to me. Lennard Ray. Come on. Come and talk to me.
Bam Bam, or better yet, Boom Boom Kaboom. Is that right? Welcome everybody to another fantastic episode of Behind Them Six with your boy Ham Solo, 05 Gaming. And today I am with a very awesome guest, Mr. Newf Nukem. What's
Boom, boom,
going on,
kaboom.
brother? How you doing?
It's good to be here, Ham. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm excited to talk with you and obviously get into the list of questions and a whole lot more. So welcome to obviously those of you watching live and those who catch it on the replay. I hope that people learn something about me. Maybe they'll like me more at the end of the day, or maybe they'll like me less, but that's up for you and your viewers to decide, I guess.
yeah, it's all good, man. I'm just here to kick it with you, talk some games, see what your history's like. You know, just get to know you more. I don't care if this is viewed by a ton of people or if this is viewed by just a few or if it's crazy likes or not. It's all about the love of gaming for me. I just really enjoy doing this kind of stuff. It's really fun. And I just kind of like to just kind of be nosy, I guess, and know who you are. I want to know who I'm conversating with on these social media platforms and stuff like that. So it's just like when I have these frequent interactions or I'm on these shows with other folks that like invite us on. So like recently,
Yeah.
me and you were on Mooch's show not that long ago, and although that was great, it would have been a lot better of a conversation if we knew each other a little bit more already, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's what I'm out here trying to do, just kind of spread the hellos and what's ups and say fuck it, let's just meet each other. We've actually even played a game on Xbox Live already too. We didn't play crazy long together, but we played some Ninja Turtles for a little while, and you had a few of your friends on there, and we smashed through it. I pretty much just kind of hopped into the game with you guys and was like, I really wanted to play this with somebody, about time.
Yeah, it was good times, man. That's what it's all about.
That was a good time. We were mopping for a little while. We were running through those levels, so that was pretty fun, definitely. But welcome to the show, brother man. Thank you so much for using your time, I would call wisely, and coming over here and getting to know your boy Ham Solo 05 Gaming. But without further ado, I would like you to go on ahead and let everybody know where they could find you, whether it's social media wise, gaming consoles or platforms and whatnot. Just whatever you're comfortable sharing with other people. Go on ahead and let that be heard right now.
Okay. Well, first off, I can tell you can find me on the Switch, but I'd give you my friend's code, but that's like giving up my social insurance number because it's that damn long. After all these years, Nintendo has to have the most complicated and contrived way of adding friends, people that I've ever seen in my life. It was easier back on the Xbox in 2001. Isn't that crazy? But it's Newf Nukem pretty much everywhere you can find me, just like you see on Twitter, where I'm most commonly found and followed. My channel is called Newf Nukem over on YouTube, and that's pretty much it. Newf Nukem 76 on PlayStation. It was Newf Nukem originally, but a while back, I think I sold or traded one of my PlayStation consoles, and by the time I got one back, I couldn't remember all my login information and for the like of me, so I had to kill that one and add it to 76. So
you sold away. You pretty much sold away your name.
Yeah, so if you see Newf Nukem just lingering in the wild, but there's no number, was my old account. That's just it's in limbo, sort of thing. But yeah, Newf Nukem 76 PlayStation, Newf Nukem on Xbox, which is the way I've been for. Oh God, it must be a long time, probably since 2013. I'm guessing.
All right, I got you. It's been some time. Then it's been some time. Blind Giant, thanks for stopping through, brother. Thank you so much. Good to see you. What's up to everybody that's coming through? Hello to those of you that are coming after the live show and whatnot. But yeah, really happy to have this gentleman on. And what he had told me before we had started the show has me interested. Because as you guys know, if you guys watch the show, very often, or if you've been here before, I like to ask every single person when they come on, like, yo, what was the very first console that you ever had? What is the game? Or like, what is the console that you really enjoyed and had access to early when you were young? And Newf went straight for my heart. And
the only way to do it.
Yeah. And he went on ahead and shouted out Sega Master System, right?
Correct. Yes,
which is just a little before my time. I'm more of a Genesis guy. So you had the one right before the Genesis, which is awesome. I actually don't even have, because usually whenever somebody says the console or whatever, I bring it up, I usually pop up a little video like here so. But this is the Sega Genesis, not the Master System, so I'm going to take that back away. So I want you guys to listen up, listen closely. Brother's about to tell you a little bit about the Master System, what it was like, what games he played. So go on ahead, Noob, hit him over the head with some facts.
Early 80s, Sega Master System, 86 to be precise, I think. I had the Master System before I owned the NES. Even though the NES was the more popular console around my neck of the woods, so a lot of my friends had it, I love the Sega Master System. It was games like Hang On, Afterburner, Shinobi that got me fully entrenched. I remember Hang On and the light gun, it was called Safari Hunt at the time, that came packed in with the Master System. That was sort of like built in. and we all remember this Master System had that little card slot where you could play card-based cartridges or whatever they were, and then they had the regular cartridges. It was just so cool. They had a fantastic little controller, and they had a wicked light gun. They had some great games. And you know what? While it struggled in popularity, it was once again Sega, leading and dominating sort of the power, having the better performing console. The graphics just popped far better than anything on the NES. Anytime they had a game that was sort of shared. Like, for example, I think the NES even had its own version of Shinobi at one point in time, but it didn't look as good. And they had their own version of Afterburner, but it was made and published by Tengen. I don't know how that happened. The whole conundrum.
You haven't seen that around in a long time.
Yeah, Tengen, right? Yeah, division of Atari apparently. But the Master System's where it all started. That wasn't really it was the Genesis though that really brought me, was sort of the revolutionary, the system that really turned gaming on its head for me.
That's awesome. Oh man. So I mean, those were the times. That's when gaming started to get a little bit more competitive for that was a time where Nintendo was looking back at Sega, and that mirror on the side of your door, or like the side of your passenger door where the words are under it, where it says objects are closer than they appear. Nintendo didn't realize that at the moment because they just seen that Sega and they're just like, I mean, they're doing something, but it ain't that much. Very next generation. They're taking some of our money.
Well, the one thing Nintendo had in the 80s that Sega obviously did not was a mascot, right? I mean, Sega tried with a couple that just never really fired. They started with Alex Kidd in Wonderland, and Alex Kidd in Miracle World, I think it was. They had Wonder Boy. They had a few of those games, but they just never resonated. It wasn't until the Genesis brought out Sonic, and then the game changed. This bright blue, brash, super fast hedgehog was like nothing we'd seen or played. So that was really the game changer, I think, for Sega overall.
Speed. Right?
Speed, attitude, because Sega was always looked at as the big boy console. Nintendo was always notified as the kiddie, and that goes right back to, you look at something like Mortal Kombat, which exemplified that extremely on the Genesis because it had the M-rated version, it had the actual blood. Nintendo didn't have any of that stuff, and you look at a lot of Sega games, they just felt more mature.
They really did. They really did. And they even had some, silly kids like myself thinking that I was grown playing some games. Oh man, I got the sports games. I got, the Madden, the Live. EA had their own sticker pretty much. That little plastic thing on the side of every single cartridge that had the, square, circle, and whatnot on it for the EA for the EA signature on the sides of every single one, which was really cool. Obviously, what came with that, because Electronic Arts was so big in Sega games, they were just so deep and entrenched in it, and you'd almost think it was first party the way that they were doing stuff over there, because they were just getting it. And these, I just loved Madden, I loved Live, I loved Road Rash. Skitchin was pretty cool. And that's all Electronic Arts games, which is pretty nuts. But I also loved my Midway and Acclaim and whatnot, as well as Williams. They had a big, piece in Mortal Kombat. What was it? Mortal Kombat. What was the other game I'm trying to think of that?
Pit Fighter.
Yeah. They had that, NBA Jam, Mortal Kombat's, like Williamson, Midway, and Acclaim. They fought over IPs amongst each other and kind of ran over each other quite a bit, and it wasn't good. But they came out with phenomenal games, and you started to see as time passed which one was actually doing well with the IPs and which one was kind of just biting and running with it. And I felt like Acclaim really screwed themselves over quite a bit when they, pretty much snatched the IP away from Midway when it came to like NBA Jam and stuff like that. Because they ended up trying to make their own version. Dud. It was super dud. And then Midway went on ahead and just said, screw it. We're going out and making hang time. We're done with y'all.
Yep.
Yep. So, I mean, it was really interesting times back then. But I really enjoyed a lot of those different games for that console. When the Genesis came out, were you like, because, I mean, obviously you came from the Master System. Did you end up running out and purchasing a Genesis right away compared to like going over to Sega? Or no, I mean to Nintendo.
That's a great question, and a lot of people take for granted the success that Genesis had, but I was there day one. I was one of literally, I'm not even going to kid you, I was literally one of the first people in all of Canada to own a Genesis. And I'm going to seem kind of crazy, but it was on a very limited release when it came, and it was largely because a lot of retailers up here in the Great White North, and I don't know if it was the same in the United States, but a lot of retailers were a little bit reluctant to basically go in on Sega because they weren't very successful with the Master System in Canada. It was distributed up here, at least through Tonka, who we all know for making like the kids' construction
Dump
toys and
trucks.
stuff. You know what I mean? So they didn't have a whole lot of experience with marketing a game console, and that largely was a big reason why the Master System failed to gain traction. Also, third-party support was very dismal. So unless you were very familiar with Sega's arcade division, a lot of games just didn't resonate. Of course, Mario was gaining traction. It was huge, especially by the time Super Mario Brothers 3 came out. That was sort of the first juggernaut per se, a game that looked well, played well, everybody had it. Of course, making Super Mario Brothers as a pack-in game was genius for Nintendo because everybody on the moon basically played the first game. And then they had all the third-party licensing, right? But the Genesis, yeah, I was there day one. I was one of the first people to get it. I bought it through a store called Consumers Distributing. I forget the exact cost, but my mom bought me the console, and I'll never forget it. I remember the box vividly. I remember taking out this amazing controller. This first time having 3 buttons on a controller. It's kind of that ovally shaped thing, and it looked cool. It felt cool. The system looked really cool. And I remember firing up the very first packing game. It was Altered Beast. I'd heard about it in the
Wow.
arcade, and now we were finally getting games that, at least at that time, started to look and emulate the look and feel of the arcades we were going into.
Hmm.
Rise from the grave, and you just had this little dude, and you got the orbs, and and then all of a sudden you just transformed on screen. We had never seen anything like that from the 8-bit era. It was amazing. Maybe not the best game ever on a Sega Genesis, but certainly one of its most memorable titles. I mean, heck, you could turn into a dragon, you turned into a bear, you turned into a wolf man. I mean, it was really cool. It was short, it was cool. I loved it. It was a great way to kick things off. And like I said, it was just icing on the cake. 1991, Sonic the Hedgehog. Rest is history. Blaze a trail through the industry. Blaze a trail for the Genesis. The sports game division was bigger and better than ever. EA was fully on board with Genesis, and they had some great arcade games. They were starting to get the multiplayer support all over the board. The multiplayer, sorry, like the third-party support. Genesis was just a juggernaut, a great system, and I can't say enough about it.
You know, back in that time, when you say, games were trying to be like arcade version,
Yeah,
that was next gen back then.
that
Was
was.
how close could you get to making it feel like you're at the arcades with your friends and whatnot? So you've seen Sega doing it. Obviously, they were kind of sure they were competing with some other people, but they actually had a lot of those gaming like developers and publishers like in their pocket as well, making games for their console and whatnot. And also Sega's making their own arcade systems and stuff back then at that time too. But what was wild was you would have other console makers trying to do the exact same thing. So you would have like, let's see, what's one that I could throw out? Like, I don't know, like Jaguar or or what's that big one I'm thinking of? Oh my god, I'm having a brain fart.
The
The
Neo Geo, the 3DO.
Yes, like the Neo Geos and stuff like that, with like the fatty cartridges and stuff like that, that were a lot of people would say were great when it came to like being just like arcades. But it's just like, dude, I'm buying a new console every time I buy a game, pretty much, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and people talk about game prices today. All you need to do is go back and look at Neo Geo, and you'll be like, man, like if you had a Neo Geo and you bought their games back in the day, you were filthy loaded, or your parents are crazy because that shit was nuts. But it was really
You were the
the
block,
90s.
yeah.
The 90s was a 3-horse race, but it was largely dominated by Genesis, Nintendo, which nearly went neck and neck. And then to a distant third was a phenomenal system that never did really gain a whole lot of traction, certainly in North America. That was the TurboGrafx from NEC. Had a massive, large following in Japan as the PC Engine, they called it, but over here it just struggled to gain ground, largely because, again, for the same reasons the Master System didn't gain ground. It didn't have the third-party support. It didn't have games like Ninja Turtles. It didn't have Street Fighters. It didn't have any of that sort of stuff. Well, that's funny it is because it actually did have the original Street Fighter, believe it or not, for the TurboGrafx before it turned into the phenomenon we know as Street Fighter 2. But it had some great games like Ninja Spirit and Bonk's Adventure and lots of other great stuff as well. Phenomenal like machine. One that I never did own and would love to have one, but like time has passed and I got too many games to play than live in the past. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And Nate in the chat, brother, I have to break this down. Like, are you talking about the because if he's talking about the same thing that I'm talking about, that I'm thinking of, because he mentioned X-Men came to Sega, and I'm wondering if he's thinking of the same one with like there's a level with like Magneto that he like floats around and whatnot, and you have the option of Cyclops, Nightcrawler, Wolverine, and there's one other person.
Yeah, and I think that one was actually made by Sega or published by Sega, if I think of it correctly.
And Nate, is that the one that you're talking about? Because I'm kind of curious. The huge purple machines, man. I don't remember the level design specifically. Okay, yeah, but he said yeah, so it is the same one I'm talking about because that game was phenomenal. And back then, they actually had a really good X-Men like movie series where it had like the numbers on the side of each of the movies that you purchased, and that animated series was phenomenal. I remember being a little kid seeing those Sentinels and being like, "Dude, those things are as big as buildings." Like, it was just
wasn't Gambit in that game?
Gambit, yeah, Gambit was in that game. And Nate said Storm as well, which I think she was in there as well. But I remember, like, wasn't there certain levels where like you'd play it and like a random character would show up and help for a little bit and then leave?
Yeah,
I don't remember if that game had that or not. I might be smushing games together now. But anyways, let's get back on topic because I could just drag this out.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that game was fantastic. I loved Gambit. Yeah, I forgot about that, man. He was a badass throwing them cards and whatnot. But I used to be Nightcrawler a lot just because he could zip around the screen a lot. Really good movement. But anyways, moving forward, so the Genesis was a hot ticket item for you back in the day, right after the Master System. But I'm wondering, so obviously you really enjoyed Sega. Were you dabbling in the background with anything else during that period?
If it was out, I basically owned the majority of consoles. I mean, I've owned every single Nintendo console that you can think of, with the exception of the Virtual Boy, which never did never did take off to me. And
You're
thank
talking
God
about
I
that
didn't
red
buy.
headset, right?
Yeah, that red thing. I never owned the Virtual Boy, but I've had the NES, I've had the Super Nintendo, I've had the Game Boy, I've had Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Pocket, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance SP, Game Boy, like I pretty much owned it at some point in time. Super Nintendo, GameCube, N64, the Nintendo Wii, the Wii U, like every Nintendo console I've pretty much owned. I've owned every single PlayStation console with the exception of the original PlayStation because I was a Sega guy and I went out and spent my hard-earned money on the Sega Saturn. That was
Yes, you
the
did.
first money I spent from a job was on my Sega Saturn. First ever job I had. That's what I saved up for and bought that mofo. It was expensive, but I never regretted it. Playing Virtual Fighter, Sega Rally, getting the original Tomb Raider, which was designed for the Sega Saturn, and many other great games. I have fond memories of that one.
Exclusive to the Sega Saturn until it just wasn't rocking right.
That's right.
Yeah, they just weren't comfortable with everything. They went on ahead and threw it on PlayStation, and most people think of that game as a PlayStation like original game.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was a PlayStation original game until like several years
Yeah.
later when I learned like what the hell this game's on the
No,
Sega
it was
Saturn.
originally made and designed for the Sega Saturn before it even was a figment of the imagination in PlayStation. But for whatever reason, it had something to do with the convoluted quad core processor or whatever the hell Sega was going with at the time. And 3D games were just a much bigger nuisance on the Sega platform, especially for third party developers who didn't have the inside track on the hardware like Sega did. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
then of course Sony just tossed the money at it, and all the rest of the Tomb Raiders came out on Sony. But a lot of people don't know that Tomb Raider started its life originally on Sega Saturn.
No way Sony tossed the money at him like that. They don't play like that.
Oh,
I'm just kidding. Obviously, I mean, what they don't like is, what they did to somebody else happening to them,
hmm
unfortunately. So it just kind of is what it is, but it's business. You get salty when you see somebody doing the kind of things you did on the come up that you did. So just kind of is what it is. It's
yeah,
interesting to watch, but a little tiresome at the same time. But moving on, so lots of Sega from you,
absolutely.
obviously. I'm wondering, did you like although you didn't get the very first PlayStation because of,
I had
Sega
Saturn.
Saturn and whatnot. I'm wondering, did you go
I was a
straight to
Daytona
the
guy
Dreamcast?
I
Or
was a Daytona guy while everybody else was playing Ridge Racer. You know what I mean?
right, yes, I do remember that Ridge Racer and the tall box.
Daytona, let's go away.
Yep, I still got Daytona. Actually, the game that I currently have in my Sega Saturn is Crusader. This game right here is difficult. It's not easy. But anyways, yeah, so did you end up getting the Dreamcast before you hopped on to the PS2?
Yes, I did. As a matter of fact, I had the N64 and I sold my N64 and my game collection to get the money for the Dreamcast. Kind of regretted it a little bit because I did love my N64, but my God, the first time I saw Dreamcast and I saw what that thing was capable of, I mean, how cool the console looked, the amazing little controller, the VMU, the whole nine yards. Sonic Adventure blew my freaking mind, not to mention how good Sega Rally looked on that. Virtual Fighter 3 TB, another fantastic arcade near perfect port. For all the mistakes that Sega made with Saturn, they basically made up for with Dreamcast. And it's just too bad that people didn't get behind it largely because the video game industry was a different beast back then. Disposable income maybe wasn't quite as common as it was today. Not saying that like people are loaded with money, but again, they didn't have all the social media, they didn't have all the gaming sites, they didn't have people like us out there speaking the praises and elevating it. God only knows where Dreamcast might have been if they had hundreds of thousands of YouTubers to sing the praises back in the day. But the bad reputation that Sega had, not only with fans but retailers, was a large downfall for Dreamcast. They did everything right, but they had the best sports lineup in the business that competed directly with EA, and in most cases
Sure
were
did.
kicking EA's ass. EA was scared to death. First time they had real competition. As a matter of fact, Sega went out and bought, or certainly picked up a lot of the devs who used to make games on the Genesis, Super Nintendo through Visual Concepts. They got a lot of their talent and put them into their own studio, which at the time was Sega Sports 2K. Well, before the 2K, but it was Sega Sports, right? They made their own
Right.
division. They had the talent. And that's where it came. Like people, think of 2K Sports today, and it's a fragment of where they were in the Dreamcast era because they used to be owned by Sega, and Sega sold them off. But my God, just absolutely phenomenal. Crazy Taxi, Jet Set Radio, Power Stone, Resident Evil, Code Veronica. Like the list goes on from amazing games
Shenmue.
that Shenmue, which maybe a little rougher on the edges by today's standards, but back then that game was like nothing we'd ever seen or
That game
played.
was butter back in the day.
Oh, the Japanese RPG segment, I mean, they were killing it in every which way and form. The console had something for everyone. Wasn't afraid to be unique, and it was different, and it was amazing, and it was the first console to let people go online. Look, it was just incredible. It's one of the most revered consoles today. It's still one of my favorite consoles of all time. I hope that's I've heard rumblings and rumors that Sega might dabble with the Dreamcast 2 at some point, and honestly, I would buy one in a heartbeat. I'd buy
I
one
would
just
too.
for the nostalgia alone, if nothing else.
I definitely would too. I mean, I just remember when I was a little kid getting that because I did the same thing that you did. I mean, back in the day, that was the only choice. Sell everything you got
Yeah,
to move to the next level. It was exactly that. Is a video game to get the video games.
yeah,
Sell everything you got, move to the next level up.
yeah.
And
Well, when you're a kid, that's the only way you got the money, right? Your mom wasn't going to buy everything for you. For me, like being younger, like I had to save up my money or I had to sell stuff that I had to move on to the next. Because I never had like every single console in my house at one time. It was like I sold one to get one. That's how it was.
exactly. But what I'm kind of going to is I remember getting my Genesis. That was really cool. I remember getting that PlayStation. Epic startup screen, right? Super duper bass, cuts off, goes into the black screen. Sounds really sharp. Looks good.
Mm-hmm.
64, amazing console. Not the prettiest unboxing I had when I was a kid, but
Right.
definitely the most sturdy and like the most trustworthy one that I probably had.
Mm-hmm.
But something about unboxing that Dreamcast was just something else. Because
Yes.
when I initially bought it, I got a VMU as well.
Yeah.
So turning on my console and hearing that beep, because it loads up the VMU in your controller,
Right.
and just being like, man, this thing is working. Like, not only is cool startup screen with the little circular thing, but the controller is telling me, hey, we're ready for liftoff.
Yeah.
Has the game telling you what game you're playing right down the center of the controller. If you're playing sports, you're picking plays off of it.
That's
If you're
right. Yes.
if you're playing Sonic, you get to see like just random flashes of the characters' faces, and just seeing the animations of it was cool. But
Yeah. The
then you
chaos.
finally get to
Chaos
that
Jet.
level in Sonic where you can get the chows.
Yeah.
And you're pretty much turning your VMU into a Tamagotchi.
Yeah. The only downside was it killed the friggin' watch batteries faster than some dildos killed AAA's.
Yeah. Yeah, those because I used to take mine to school and whatnot, so it used to die all the time. Yeah, man, everyone was playing with their Tamagotchis. I had my chow, man. I was
What is that
feeding it,
thing?
taking on
Yeah.
walks. You remember all that. True Racer YouTube Tech says, hope everyone has a great night. Thank you for showing up. Appreciate that. Nice sentiment in the chat. But going from the Dreamcast
Yeah.
to the PlayStation 2, how did that feel? Obviously, it was sad in some way because you're dropping what you've been messing with for years.
Yeah.
but at the same time, it had to be somewhat exciting because now it's like, man, I have this crazy catalog of games, which I haven't really touched any of them.
Yeah, yes, at the time, by the time the PlayStation 2 come out, I wouldn't say Sony wasn't still quite the juggernaut that we know them today. Things were still largely different. There was still a little bit of a question mark. How are they going to follow up the massively successful PlayStation? I think a lot of people were big on the original PlayStation 2 simply because it was the first console that actually had a DVD drive in it. That the Dreamcast was a CD drive based console, and PlayStation went with the DVD format. So, back then DVDs were just starting to come into the scene. Anybody remembers that standalone DVD players at that time were far more expensive than they were years later. So a lot of people bought it to watch movies. And again, it was a powerful system. It was the first time, like some of the games were definitely just outstanding to look at. And then they started coming out with lots of third party games and stuff like that. It was just a juggernaut, and I loved it. I remember my first game for my PlayStation 2 was, I think it was Gran Turismo 3 A Spec. I think
A
that's the one that
spec,
came back in.
yes, that
Um,
around the
you
same
know,
time was like Twisted Metal Black and stuff like that. Yep.
Absolutely, yeah. So I remember Tomb Raider, Shadows of Darkness, I think it was called, and like so many great games. And then of course the juggernaut for the PlayStation 2 was Grand Theft Auto 3.
Oh,
That
facts.
was the
Thank you.
game. That was the game that lit the PlayStation 2 from just a console to like a like people just went nuts. That was where Grand Theft Auto went from this little 2D overhead little shooter that no one give a
Yeah,
rat's dink
bird's eye
about.
view. Nobody
And
cared
then all
about.
of a sudden, oh, we had this open world, well, sort of open world, I guess, or for the most part, this game that nobody ever seen anything like this. Walking around, with guns and bats and hopping in cars and driving where you want and doing these crazy missions and crazy dialogue and beating up hookers and the whole nine yards. Like it had everything. Video games were on another level then, and it was just all uphill or all downhill in a good way, I guess, for Sony at that point in time. And the rest is history. I love my PlayStation 2, but shortly thereafter came the juggernaut, or the beast, I call it, the Xbox.
Okay, well, right before we get into that, because that's going to be a fun one, I just wanted to throw the shout out about back to True Racer. He just says life's been busy, work, family, etc. Usually, by the time I'm in bed, getting up at 3 a.m. for work, 5 days out of the week sucks. Shout out to Dark Optimus as well. He says Newf. That's it. And then John Wolf up in the chat as well. Good to see him. He says, "Hey, I'm Nuve. Looking forward to another fire show. Hope you guys have a great weekend." Shout out
You
to
know,
you, brother. You do the same. You're a great individual, and I really enjoy seeing your takes on Boom Show. And just whenever you have an opportunity to lay out your opinion, it's usually well thought out, and sometimes it's a little cold, but I'm here to see it. I think it's funny. Let's go. Keep going. That's where I'm at. But what were you saying, Noof?
I just wanted to give a special shout out to True Racer and Dark Optimus. And the reason I say that because when I started this whole thing, when I got into this podcasting and streaming and everything else, those two guys go way back with me, like right back to the origins. True Racer was one of the very first people to ever invite me on one of his podcasts. He liked my sense of humor and the way I did things. And Dark Optimus and I have been on lots of podcasts together, especially in my early
Dark
years,
Harness is
and
cool.
played a lot of games together. So those two guys, those are old school. So when I think of the beginnings, those two guys were there. Yeah, pretty much at the humble beginnings of Newf Nukem.
I like Dark Optimus. He's real honest. He's real honest.
Yes, great
I've
guy.
been on a couple podcasts with him already with K Mega and whatnot, and no bullshit with him. I like it. He's
Yeah,
he's, he's a good dude.
Moose Chopson called him Dark Goldblum. You'll have to
Why?
ask him about that.
Okay,
Dark Goldblum. I forget exactly how that came about, but a lot of times when we hang out in a podcast or playing a game, he'd be called Dark Goldblum. Yeah, he
and
probably remembers. It's vague for me right now.
Yeah, I'll have to holler at him before one of K Mega show next time he shows up, or maybe if he decides to slide through on here, that'd be real cool. I wouldn't mind doing a little interview with him as well. But RSJ fan says to me, not much. I'm just watching, or I'm just watching and playing Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer. Good to see you up in here. I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much, and make sure you guys hit that like button if you guys appreciate or like this type of podcast. And if you do actually like it, hit that subscribe button. Show your brother some love. I'm trying to hit that 500 before the end of the year. Probably not gonna happen. But a brother has to have a goal. I gotta have a goal so I can just keep pushing and whatnot. And best
You're at
believe
what,
next
4
year.
something now, correct?
I'm at like 409 or 410.
That's totally doable.
So I'm really hoping to push that up to 500 before the end of the year. That would be fantastic. That's been my goal the entire year, was just to hit 500. I started this year at like 150 or 200, so not too bad. Not too bad for a little organic growth, I guess. But anyways, moving forward. So yeah, now it's the Xbox. So obviously PlayStation had a bunch of dope games. I loved my PlayStation 2. I was like what you were saying. GTA 3 lit a fire under my ass. That game was so dope. I enjoyed the living hell out of it. I tell everybody, whether they agree or not, but I say, yo, GTA 3 set the standard for open world games. And then I felt proud of myself because I sat down and watched the Todd Howard and Lex, I forgot his last name, but you know what I'm talking about, right? They just had that interview just like a day or two ago. I watched that whole thing, and Todd Howard confirmed what I said. And he's like, GTA 3 was like evolutionary when it came to open world games. And I was like, thank you. He's been saying what I've been saying for a hot minute. So I felt a little good about hearing that. But yeah, I mean, it's true. I absolutely love GTA. I absolutely love Midnight Club. Rockstar was crushing it on the PlayStation 2 with the Warriors. They had all sorts of just great
Bully
games. Bully was up on there. Yeah, I mean, Manhunt was controversial and in trouble for coming out with the way they did, but Rockstar just didn't care, man. They did what they had to do. But it wasn't even just them that were running things over there. They had all sorts of great games just coming out for the PlayStation 2. But the thing that kind of slowed me down on the PlayStation 2 was some of the features a little bit. And that's what that's what became so appealing to me when it came to Xbox, because it was like, PlayStation has a lot of great games. I enjoyed a lot of my games via PlayStation.
Yeah.
But when I went over to a friend's house, and I've told the story before many times on this podcast, when I went over to a friend's house and he was playing the same game I was playing at home, which I was like, whatever, that's cool. It runs faster on here. I'll give you that. That's what I said, because that Xbox was snappy when it came to its games compared to the PlayStation. So I gave him that. I showed up to his crib. He was playing Conflict Desert Storm. Okay. I had already beat that game on my PlayStation 2. When I got over there, we started playing it from the beginning and whatnot, and I was like, this is cool. I'm playing with somebody else. This is a co-op experience. We both get to control two different people and run into battle. He pauses the game as we're running through the sand and says, hold up real quick. And he goes to the options. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, hold up, I got something to show you real quick. He went to the music area.
Yeah.
And bro turned on Tupac Better Days. And I went to looking around. Like, where's that music coming from?
Right.
And he's like, it's coming from the Xbox. I was like, but there's a game in the Xbox. And he's like, but it has a hard drive on it. And I was like, well, where's the memory card at? And he's like, it doesn't need a memory card. I was like, what do you mean it doesn't need a memory card? I had to buy a memory card for my PlayStation. And he's like, nah, man, this thing has like unlimited memory on it. That's the way he described it to me. He's like, this thing has like unlimited memory because it said 50,000 blocks, right?
Yeah.
When did you ever hit the 50,000? I didn't.
No, back then nobody did. I don't think. It
So
was crazy.
yeah, when he because I was the gamer that plugged the yellow cord into the TV to get the video. I plugged the
Yeah.
red cable in to get the sound, but I plugged the white cable from my stereo system into the TV so that I could get that sound from the music. So I
Remember
had,
playing the WWE games on the Xbox, and you could literally put your own soundtrack in for the intros? That was freaking
Bruh.
amazing.
Same with 2K. 2K, you could cut certain
Yeah.
parts of the song and have it every time you score a touchdown, you have Lil Wayne coming on or something like
Yeah.
that. It was
Have your own
so
music for goal
good.
celebration stuff in some of the sports games.
Exactly. So I want to know your reason behind getting an Xbox because that was my reason. It was just so dang like inventive, in my opinion. But go on ahead, Newf.
Well, it's going to start with a little game called Halo.
Okay.
Now, I wasn't on the ground room floor for the Xbox. Again, I was a PlayStation 2 guy. I didn't had limited money. I was quite happy with the PlayStation. But I kept watching all these videos of this Xbox console, which first of all, looked very cool because it was massive. It looked like a VHS player. It was a massive console, but it had this controller. Now, again, when I first bought my Xbox, it had already come in the box with this, what they call the S version controller. So it wasn't the Duke anymore, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And I think mine might have come bundled in. I can't remember. It came bundled? No, it didn't come bundled in. I think at the time it had the S controller. It came with a dual cartridge. I think it was Tetris Worlds or something like that. And I think it was Star Wars: The Clone Wars. But of course, one of the first games I went
one of
played
those
my
flip
money
over
for,
games.
the flip over games, yeah. And
Yep.
then one of the first games, of course, I bought was Halo 2. I got swept by the hype. I saw the graphics of this game. They said it was co-op multiplayer. The rest is history. Got right into Xbox Live, and the console changed my life. I mean, then I started playing games like Ninja Gaiden, and games like, oh my God, like one of the ones I love to this day, Chronicles of the Riddick, Escape from Butcher Bay. Unfreaking believable. Games that were never, they said, possible on PlayStation and never did come to the PlayStation, right? One made by Tecmo with Ninja Gaiden and Ninja Gaiden 2. And obviously Atari published Pitch Black, but it was made by Tygon. And it was a game division made by Vin Diesel himself. His likeness was in the game. He did the voice acting. It was like literally like one of the best third-person action sci-fi shooters I've ever played in my life. Love this game even to this day. Xbox was like nothing I'd ever seen. Like you said, the hard drive was set a new precedent. Xbox Live was already doing shit better in 2001 than Nintendo does today, which is unfathomable.
You just had to throw the shade.
The whole thing with gamer tags. They were the first to have a gamer tag. They're the first to come up with achievements. All of this stuff set unprecedented. You know, of course they borrowed the 4 controller ports like Nintendo had previously, but this S controller, the dual analog sticks, it felt right because that was one of the things through the first couple of generations of PlayStation that I always hated. I love their console, but I hated the freaking controllers. I hated the PlayStation 2 controller. I hated the PlayStation 3 controller. By the time they got the 4, they were starting to get it right. It started to feel weightier. The triggers were a massive improvement because prior to the PlayStation 3, they had the stupid little buttons on top. It just never felt good, especially if you were a shooting guy. You're like, oh, this feels terrible compared to the Xbox. Just it
didn't go in. It was just very surface.
No, they were just very surface on the top. They didn't have a large. I don't. They just, if you're big fingers, it just felt awkward. You know, it's a great little controller for action games and platformers, but for like I said, the shooters, which were very popular on Xbox, it just didn't feel good. But you're trying to play your Call of Duty games on PlayStation, you're like, Not to mention those. Well, they still have it today, but the freaking analog sticks close together, your thumbs are going the wrong freaking way. I've gotten used to it, and it's not a big deal for me. Like for some people, they love that. I still like the asymmetrical of the Xbox, one thumb up, one thumb lower. It just feels more natural. My thumbs don't slip off as much with Xbox. It's one thing Xbox has always gotten right. But now the PlayStation 5 controller, that's a beauty. That's just about near perfection in my mind.
Other than the analog spots.
Yeah, I would still change that, but it's tolerable. They're a lot better than they used to be.
I know Hargeet came on the show and he said he despises the PlayStation controllers. They make his hands hurt, I guess. Which is
At least,
interesting.
yeah, at least too now with the new controllers, they have sort of the concave thumbsticks as opposed to the fucking mushroom heads of the old PS2 and PS3. So your
Right.
thumbs got sweaty and they felt like they were rolling off all the time.
They'd slip. They
That's
would
why,
literally
yeah,
slip off.
exactly. And then your hands felt all cramped up because the controller was so tiny and shit. You're like, my big old mitts just don't fit good.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I get that 100%. What up, Gogopole? Good to see you up in here. I'm sorry if anybody's looking over at my face and they're just like, dude, your face is looking a little different today. Yeah, I have this tooth, this abscess tooth. I'm going to get a root canal tomorrow. So wish me luck on a quick recovery on that, because I got a show tomorrow after my root canal, and that's gonna be
Damn.
interesting.
It's not like Kenny McCormick.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely going to. But luckily I'm not like the lead person of the show on this channel. That's my boy Loke. So that will be nice. I'll be able to just kind of kick back and just answer questions and tell him leave me alone for a little bit. But anyways, moving forward, so Xbox was really big for you. It kind of got in the way of PlayStation a little bit for you. The controllers, the controller was nice. The new games, obviously the new things that they put in, which like profiles, Xbox Live, music, being able to listen to whatever you decide to throw onto the console, really cool and whatnot. But moving on to the next generation, you see the 360 come out, and it's at a very reasonable price. Does a lot of really cool things. Does not have a Blu-ray, and it actually has the high definition, the HD DVD. While PS3 comes out, Blu-ray has HDMI from the jump, because Xbox didn't. Xbox had to wait until they did like a refresh kind of thing to put the HDMI in there. It was a little bit later,
Right.
but what did you think of the beginning of that generation? Were you a big fan of Xbox? Did you jump on that boat first, or did you try PlayStation?
Well, both consoles came out largely sort of in the same window, but obviously I was going with Xbox because of the impression I was left from the original, right? It was
Okay.
carried over. Of course, you're going to get games like Halo, Gears of War, so on and so forth. But for me, one was the price. Xbox, I remember, came out again with the two SKU system. So they had the arcade edition for those people that wanted to save a little bit of money up front, kind of minus the hard drive. You had to use the little memory cards. Remember, 256 megabytes. That version, or you had the Pro, which came with the 20 gigabyte hard drive that attached to the top or came with it. I wasn't fortunate enough to get a Pro. They were in short supply, so I had to settle for the Xbox arcade unit at the time. Picked up the hard drive down the road, which costed extra money. It was more expensive to get the arcade and then buy the hard drive, but it was what it is. It's all I could do, right? But I remember that seeing the games on the 360, and especially the one game that brought me into that was Call of Duty 2. And after playing the Call of Duties on previous platforms like the Xbox, PlayStation 2, and GameCube, when I saw the graphics of Call of Duty 2, I went ballistic. I was like, "Holy hell! Now this is some next gen level stuff right here. This is whoa!" And I remember the launch games like Cameo from Rare, which was amazing. They had an amazing launch lineup for the 360. Unprecedented stuff. I mean, we all remember Project Gotham came out. Was it Project Gotham 2 or 3 or whatever? 2 or 3, I think it was. And Cameo and Call of Duty 2, and they had a whole bunch of great games, and it just blew my mind. Of course, it was paramount for Xbox. I did pick up a PS3 a little bit later down the road, and of course, the Blu-ray feature in there was really cool. Xbox, I had the HD DVD. I thought it was amazing. It's too bad that also lived a short life, and that was one of Xbox's biggest mistakes with 360. Was the fact that I understand they made it standalone because they didn't want to add They didn't want to add something to add price because that was one of the selling features of the 360 was to beat Sony on price, right? But I bought it and it was great. And I used it a lot and I had a good little movie collection and it looked fantastic. But where I think Microsoft failed was a year or two later when they were able to sort of circumvent some of the costs. They should have started making 360s with the HD DVD built in. I think that would have been a game changer for them. It would have been a game changer for the format because anybody knows that a big reason that Blu-ray largely took precedence over HD DVD was because it came bundled with PlayStations, and I knew a lot of people that literally went out and bought PlayStation 3s, not because of the games, they just bought it because it was the cheapest Blu-ray player on the market. A
Yeah,
good
Blu-rays
Blu-ray
were
player.
expensive. Shit,
But
I remember
yeah, it
just an
was, you
HDMI
know,
cable was like $100 back then.
exactly. Compared to buying a standalone, like the PlayStation 3 was a steal, but yet it was an expensive console. So that was a big feather in the cap for Sony. It allowed them more memory and space. And like you said, the HDMI out of the box. And we all remember the original PlayStation 3, the big fat sucker that had the hard drive built in and was actually native backwards compatible. And then they changed it. They tried to cut costs and cut corners, and eventually each iteration of PlayStation kind of got a little bit like less featured and less capable, and they came with different hard drive sizes. Like I think it was like a 40 at one point and a 20, and God only knows what else. I think what the original came at, what was it, 40 or 60 or something like that. But then they changed it, right? They made some different versions, and of course the revamps. But yeah, no, I love those consoles. Both of them were great. They both had amazing games. Obviously, I'm going to give the edge to the 360 largely because of Xbox Live, which was like, PlayStation Network now is good. But back in the PS3, it was not very good. Compared to Xbox Live, Xbox Live was kicking its ass in every department. That's why Sony had to pick up the slack. And that's a large reason why Sony came up with PlayStation Plus, and that's why they started the free games, because they knew if there was any way, because they went from having a free service to charging people, and the only way they were going to convince people to go over was to give them something extra. So give them great games, make the multiplayer mandatory, and Bob's your uncle. But a lot of people that went into the PlayStation 4, for example, they went in blind. They thought that PlayStation, they were going to get on and play their multiplayer free, and they got a rude awakening. I heard a lot of people like, what the hell is this crap? I got to pay for this now? It was free on the PlayStation 3. A lot of people did. And that was a big selling feature of the PS4 out of the gate that people didn't realize. They were just buying the console thinking, oh, it's the same as the PS3. You're getting charged for it now, buddy. And I had a lot of angry people be like, man, I can't believe I bought this and now I got to pay for it. Right? There you go.
Yep, is what it is. But that was them taking the right step, though, because they needed to, because they were getting hacked out of the woodwork. And obviously, if you're not charging anybody for a certain service, you're going to neglect the hell out of that service. And that's what they did. And now they started getting paid for it, they started actually bringing value to it and also giving you some sort of area to trust. But it took a lot. It took them getting hacked. It took them owing other people money to make that change. So that isn't exactly great. And I still feel that Sony's kind of in that predicament right now, still, to where they kind of wait until it's too late to fix things. So if you look at this generation, they started rewards back up. They've had rewards in the past, but they started it back up. They got back compat team after they launched the console, which is so backwards.
Yeah.
Right? It's they have these things that they've had prior, but they are so good at neglecting things. Where the thing that Xbox does where it's a big mistake is sometimes they give you things when you're not exactly ready or needing it. So like you just said about the HD DVD player. It was fantastic because it was an add-on. Very next generation, they force you to get a Kinect that nobody really wanted. I mean, I liked it, but a lot of people didn't want it. They didn't like all that extra stuff. PlayStation didn't force you to get anything. In fact, they were $100 cheaper, right? So that's a frequent fault that Xbox kind of had definitely in the last generation, and kind of I don't know. I guess they kind of nix that in the butt this generation for sure. All gaming and stuff like that. It seems like, but it seems like PlayStation likes to be kind of like, we're not really going to try until you prove to us that something that we even possibly invented is worth it. Right? So it's just like, you guys already had the reward system. It didn't do well, but now that Xbox has a reward system, you guys figured out another way to get one. You didn't want to do backwards compatibility. You wanted to move on. No, we believe in generations, right? But then you see the other on the opposite end of the, on the other side of the street, Xbox is just crushing it with backwards compatibility. And they're like, oh, crap. We got to scramble up and get our things back in order and get that ready. And it's just a little rough to see, because it's like, dude, you know what these fans want. You know what they want. But you're not giving it to them because you think that this extra work is unnecessary. And then when the opposing team does that unnecessary work, they're like, oh crap, we actually do have you guys' back. I'm sorry. And it's crazy to think, because like you think about the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, you could carry over your memory card. You can carry over your games. PlayStation 3, you could still carry over your games. Maybe not the memory card anymore, but you could at least carry over the games and stuff like that. For the original iteration of the PS3, later on, they kind of knocked out that backwards compatibility. You could only play PlayStation 1 and PS3 games on your PS3. But then as they kept going, it got more expensive and you got less for your dollar, which is weird. They had great games, which kept them moving. It kept them looking good, but you notice you're paying about the same, if not, you're paying about the same, but you're not getting as much back. Your back catalog, your old games no longer work on that console. Your old controller no longer works on that console, which is insane to me. How is the PS4, that controller is not that bad? It's not that bad. It has a lot of the same functionality as the DualSense without the special rumble and the haptic triggers. It has a lot of the same stuff.
PS4 controller is really good.
But for some reason, you can't use it, which is insane. But anyways, I digress. It was a interesting time for gaming, definitely. You could definitely see the changes in fidelity in games a lot. I remember even the Xbox had a switch on their composite cables where you could switch it from like 720 to something else or back and forth. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. Yes. Yeah. They had like a little box that was almost connected to the cable. Everything was clunky. But thank God they finally got rid of the power brick. My God.
Yeah.
You could whiz that at somebody and knock them out cold. I think it was gigantic. No wonder it was so friggin' heavy. You had this big old console, and you had this gigantic brick that plugged into the wall. Like, what the hell's up with that?
It was like double the size of the Xbox One as well. that thing was like, it was like a fucking sub sandwich from fucking Subway. It was a long son bitch. It was about the same size as a grown man's shoe. it was big, but yeah, I'm happy they ended up getting rid of that. But I want to know now. So this is where things get a little rough, because Xbox, like I said, they force you to take the Kinect. PS4 doesn't, and it has it has better fidelity on the PlayStation. And it's $100 cheaper. Did you still go with Xbox first, or were you on the end of PlayStation this time?
That's a great question, and this is interesting because I remember the launch of the Xbox One quite vividly. I remember the outpour of the anger, the disbelief with what Xbox was doing. The focus again on entertainment. It felt like it was going to be anything but a game system. It looked okay. Of course, they had a revised and improved version of the controller, and nobody was theoretically against the Kinect. But again, people just didn't feel it needed to come bundled. And certainly, if you're going to bundle it, they needed to eat the costs out of the gate, which they were negated to do so. Like I said, then you had the resolution gate fiasco. I that didn't bother me. I didn't care if the game ran a little bit less resolution than any of the PlayStation versions. But look, here's the bottom line. I was actually dead set against getting an Xbox One. I was saving up some money to get a PlayStation 4. And how
You
this
were
is really funny,
against getting an Xbox One.
I was against. I was actually going to boycott the Xbox platform because I didn't like where they were heading. I didn't like
Fair.
the way they're launched and the whole DRM issues and all the rest of the crap that they were coming out with. It felt like they dropped the ball and Sony picked it up and ran it through the touchdown. We all remember the whole "this is how you share games," and of course, anybody knows me knows that I'm a
That was
physical game player.
embarrassing.
I like to collect my games, and I was like, man, I won't be able to lend games to a friend, or how's this going to work if I go to the store to pick up a game to rent, or all those sorts of questions start going through your mind. You start getting doubts, right? But the sucky part was you already had invested several years now into the ecosystem. You had your gamer tag, you had all these achievements, you had all this stuff, your friends list, everything was associated with the platform. And here comes in Sony, like I said, carrying over the late year success because PlayStation 3 finished strong. It may have started rough, but it finished strong. And I was like, yeah, I think you know what, I'm going to get a PlayStation 4. Like this thing is cheaper than the Xbox, and it looks really cool. Like design wise, I like the look of the PlayStation 4. Like it looked cooler out of
I
the
think it's one of the best looking
you know,
consoles ever made.
yeah. It came out, had that sort of that slanted thing, and I was like, man, this thing looks cool, and much improved controller. Um, you know, but where was I going to go with this? But how I ended up with Xbox was at the time, at least here in Canada, I think you guys ran something in the States as well. Pepsi and Doritos was running a win one every day promotion for Xbox, for the Xbox One. So you bought some Pepsis, you bought some Doritos, you put in some codes, and you hope to God that you won. Well, guess what? I was one of those lucky people that scored one. So literally sitting at work inside my radio station, get a call from Pepsi Cola Canada saying, "Mr. Stacy, you have won the Xbox One." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? You got to be kidding me, right?" Like I thought this stuff was always just a load of crap, right? No, I won it. Did the trivia contest, and sure enough, I remember it vividly. December 26, 2013, the Xbox had showed. So it was a little bit after the launch, but of course they had to allocate the systems, get them in. So a little bit of wait. But that's how I ended up with the Xbox One. And the rest is history. I just fell in love with it right away. Loved the Kinect and everything it did, and I went with it. And then I picked up the PlayStation 4 shortly thereafter and had both of those consoles.
Man, that's a wild little story you got right there.
Yeah. And I was very broke too that year. Like I couldn't afford. I was saving up for the PS4,
So I'm
and then I
broke.
win the Xbox. Yeah, I was pretty broke. Like I just didn't have money to jump on a. What were they up here, in Canada? I think they're like $4.99. I think it was for the Xbox with the Kinect. So I
Yeah,
was like, damn, right? 4.99, 5 something, whatever it was. Like it was up there, right? I was like,
yeah,
damn,
it's
like I
probably a
just
little
don't have the
more
money
for
to
you
spend.
because it was $4.99 here. It was five
Well,
hundred bucks
then it
here.
was $5.99 here. Yeah.
God damn, that's
Right.
expensive. Fuck.
Yeah, I know, right? I just didn't have the money at the time, and I win one, right? And I was like, holy crap, right? It was crazy. That whole year, that year of 2013, 2014, like the shit that I was winning was crazy. Like it was nuts.
So I want to know, like, so you went from boycotting or wanting to boycott Xbox
Yep.
to sipping some Pepsi and winning some Xbox.
That's
So
right.
like I want to so I want to know, like, you said you enjoyed the Kinect. One of my favorite features from the Kinect was the snap feature.
Mhm.
Pull up YouTube or your TV watch. I'm sitting here watching an NFL game while I'm playing Rise Son of Rome. You know what I'm saying? I want to know, like, what was some really cool features about the Kinect that you really enjoyed, and and then I want to know how you felt in 2017 when they took a lot of the Kinect features away.
Well, that's just it. The Kinect on the Xbox One was largely a Kinect that we had hoped and should have had with the 360. It was a far more realized version of the camera that they wanted to have. Like cost was a big issue when the original Kinect dropped, and you could feel like the tech was promising, but it wasn't quite realized. And to this day, I don't feel that the Xbox Kinect and the Xbox One version was ever fully fully exploit it and realize, right? It's amazingly cool tech, which is really funny because even though the Kinect doesn't exist today, how many pieces of technology are out there today that are now emulating and basically using the same technology, right? It's absolutely nuts. But I love the fact that I could sit back on my couch when I came in, and as soon as I walked in front of my TV screen, it recognized me and would turn on. And then it was just Xbox, play Halo, boom, the game boots up and starts going. It was freaking nuts. Xbox, search for such a game or whatever. Boom, the game, the dashboard would come up and all this crap would just work. Yeah, sometimes it didn't recognize you. It has to repeat it again. All that sort of crap. But like
Mhm.
it was so cool. It was ahead of the game. You know, then you got to play games like Connect Sports, and you got to play that Star Wars game. You know, like you kind of did it with the Wii, which is kind of the audience they were capturing. But no, sorry, I'm thinking about that's on the 360. Um, but they had lots of cool stuff. You know, the voice commands and some of the games would have it in their actual commands itself. And you know,
Mhm.
obviously it was largely used for TV. Remember the picture in picture and everything else too.
Oh yeah.
And you were able to use, and the Kinect you were able to use too when you were editing videos. Remember, Xbox had their own little video editor, and some of my first videos on my channel were all done through that like that little program and the Kinect. I was able to use the camera that had like the green screen backstropy stuff, and there was a shit ton of stuff, and there was a lot of stuff that could have come out with that and really exploited it, but they gave up on it before they went all in because they were losing the game. The price point was killing them. And unfortunately, it was price that was the ultimate downfall. But I think if they had stuck with it and maybe bundled them in for free at some point, and more developers would have hung on and made games for it, I think we would have seen a phenomenal little machine.
Absolutely. I mean that I thought the Connect was pretty dope. It definitely had its annoying moments, um but like man, I'm telling you, when I used to walk into my crib and I used to like bring a girl home or something, you know what I'm saying? Like, just get out there, have a few drinks and then come home and you got a new girl with you or something like that. You open up that front door, she comes in, you take your coat off, and as you are hanging it up, you just look over at your TV and say, Xbox on. Your whole setup turns on, and that girl was like, "Oh snap, what's going on here?"
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Well,
it was extra nice back then. It gave you a sense of like that like futuristic going
yeah.
in a
Don't
really
forget
cool direction.
don't forget as well that the Kinect was a large victim to all the bullshit that went around too, right? The whole the government spying on you, Xbox is spying on you, and people were afraid to have it. And the funniest thing is, you sit there now and you laugh about it, but it was a big thing. They're making all these issues about the Kinect and what it was doing, listening to you and spying on you and all this sort of shit. Now everybody's got a cell phone in their pocket. And what's your
Right.
cell phone literally doing? Listening to you and basically spying on you, you know? Every
Yep.
app now, you can't open an app without accepting their cookies. And does this app have permission to use your was it your mic and your camera and your
And
phone
your
regalia? You're like,
contacts and
what's that
shit.
all about?
So
Yeah,
why you
because
need
they're
my
tailor making ads.
contacts?
Yeah, they're tailor making ads. That's what it is. It's basically reading your shit to sell you ads. That's why now when you open up stuff, you get ads related to video games because you're a video gamer. We spend a lot of time talking about it. You know, I get where they're going, but it's kind of intrusive, right?
It really is because I mean I was playing, I think it was like Persona or something like that, and I had said something out loud, and then I go to my phone and type in the first two letters and it pulls it up for me. And I'm just like, that's not usually something that you'd pull up whenever I put those first couple letters in, you know what I'm saying? So that these phones and devices and stuff like that, they are listening and waiting for certain keywords to try to sell you something and keep it moving. John Wolf said something pretty dope that I remember back in the day. Because like Madden games, NBA
Yeah.
games, like you go on ahead and say something, you say the wrong thing, and you get a technical foul. Like you get like somebody steals the ball from you, you're like, oh, that was fucking bullshit. Tech.
Wasn't there horror games? I forget. Wasn't there a horror game like that too? Like if you made too much noise, they would hear you,
Oh,
so
I'm
you
sure
had to
there
be quiet.
was.
I forget which one it was, but yeah, I think one of the games. I don't know. It might have been one of the. Well, I don't even remember now, but I'm almost positive it was a horror game that you literally had to be quiet. If you made too much noise, you were talking. Like I think Alien Isolation used it. If you were talking too much or whatever, the alien would know where the hell you were. would just come for you. You had to be really quiet.
I think it's like games like Skyrim and stuff like that. You had like magic spells that you could yell and stuff like that too. So the Connect was really cool. I really enjoyed the Snap feature. The Snap feature was probably my favorite part, to be honest, just because I used to be Xbox Snap YouTube and throw on some shows or be jamming out to some music and playing Call of Duty or something like that. But I want to know what did you think back in 2017 when they started to stop a lot of the functionality within the Snap. Were you around enough to remember that, or were you playing more or less on PlayStation at that point?
No, by that time, I really didn't care. Like I said, the biggest downside of the Kinect and them sort of kiboshing it was the whole how it was used, and I implemented it for Upload Studio. And again, it was just that simplicity of coming home and doing something as simple as walking in front of the TV, and it would recognize you and knew you by your face and your voice, and little cool quality of life features. But at the end of the day, it really didn't. Because they had nothing that revolutionized the gaming experience. It still, no matter how you looked at it, it felt more gimmicky. It felt like it never really realized its potential. And again, that's because not enough people bought it. In turn, when something doesn't sell enough, you don't get enough developers putting all of their R&D and their funds behind something. So you never really get a flesh out game that feels like was built from the ground up and utilized all the features properly. But you hear years later how military and science and the health industry use the Kinect in a lot of different ways that console gamers never really did get to see. And I think if more games had to come out very similar to Peter Molyneux and the original Project Milo, which we all remember to associate with the original Kinect, if we had more stuff like that, I think the units would have been absolutely flying off shelves and people wouldn't have cared. But that stuff never did come to realization. Again, a lot of smoke and mirrors, a lot of empty promises and stuff that never got fully realized. And it's unfortunate, but I didn't really care. By that time in 2017, it was all about the games, and that's all I wanted Xbox to get back to doing, was making fantastic games and utilizing this Xbox One console. And and then the S comes along and the Series X, and boy, it was a whole new ball game then.
Okay, so now I got to know, since you mentioned, games and who had them and whatnot. I want to hear what your thoughts were on the PS4 during that generation. So now you obviously have, you got both consoles. You can see which one's doing what right, which one's doing what wrong. What was great about the PlayStation, and what do you feel like it was possibly missing?
Well, PlayStation Plus, first of all, had improved immensely compared to the PlayStation 3. The voice chat and microphones and everything else itself were much easier to implement and sounded way better. PlayStation Plus was giving out some of the best free games with their service in the industry. Not to mention that PlayStation 4 came up with some of the best launch lineup and some of the best games in recent years, starting with games like Ratchet and Clank, Uncharted 4. Then you had 2018's God of War. I mean, the PlayStation 4 deserved its sales. It largely did. I mean, they had a couple of lull years. I remember when they started the PlayStation 4, and this was one of the things I didn't care about. Remember when PlayStation 4 largely came out, and for the first year or two, they sort of had a little bit of a lackluster lineup. And they were the ones who were touting the indie scene, right? It was all about the indies with PlayStation. And then as soon as they started dropping the big AAA stuff and they started having a massive amount of success, then all of a sudden it was about those games, and indies kind of got brushed off to the wind. And then ID at Xbox was really coming into their own and really promoting a lot of great new developers and indie games. And indie scene became synonymous with Xbox and so on and so forth. It's just both great consoles, both worthy of having a space in your home. But I owned them for both different reasons, right? I owned an Xbox largely because of the Xbox Live ecosystem, the amount of friends I had, the fact that my gamer tag and my score were kind of synonymous, and of course my favorite franchises are still on the Xbox platform. No matter how I look at it, my favorite franchises are there. PlayStation had, like I said, the big AAA, the exclusive games you couldn't play anywhere else, especially during the PS4 era before they started to go into PC. So it was kind of like, yeah, if you wanted to play them, you had to have it. And that's how it's always been for me in PlayStation. It's a love-hate relationship there most of the time, but I kind of say that with Xbox too these days. You know what I mean? So that's kind of a topic maybe for later on here. But both great systems with various strengths, and they both have something to offer. And I loved them both and played them both for different reasons.
Perfect. So that was so we kind of just got done driving down this long road of the history of Newf's gaming and whatnot. So, we started way back at the Master System. We made our way all the
Mhm.
way up to the Xbox One PS4 generation. I want to know now what you currently think about this generation, not just the console, but the way that these companies are moving right now. So, like, I want you to start off with PlayStation. What do you think of the PlayStation 5 so far? The games that you played on it, and the direction that they're moving with their platform.
Well, let's just say aesthetically, and I've said this many times, it's a good looking system, but it's a big bitch. Okay. Um,
Facts.
I like the console, while on paper it's not as powerful. Look, it's a great machine. Like I said, I love how it looks. I love that it does something a little bit different. I love the two-tone, the white plates on the black center. I've always kind of liked that fresh futuristic style. The controller is a great implementation. One of its strengths, of course, was not only improving their old controller, but really making it something special with the haptic feedback, the microphone built into it, the touchpad. There's a lot of things you can do with the controller. It just feels like a great piece of tech. I love the controller. It's the best one they've had by far. It's got a nice weight to it as well. It just feels very comfortable. Um, so from a power, performance, and all the rest of it, it's great. Solid state hard drive, the quick games booting up. Some great games. I mean, right off the get go. Obviously Spider-Man Miles Morales, fantastic game. Then of course you got Horizon Forbidden West. So like so far, 2 years in, they've been killing it with some of the games. There's no question about it. The downsides, again, it's the fact that Sony, if you want to play it, that's great, but you're going to pay for it. Sony is right now is certainly throwing no bones out there. They know their audience, much like Nintendo knows their audience, and they know their audience is they want stuff, they're going to pay for it, and they damn well will. Like they're just going to charge you, and there's no bones about it. I mean, seriously, why is anybody paying $70-$80 for the Last of Us remake? I'm not against the fact of having a remake or a remaster, but when you're paying full price for a game that's already been out on 2 previous generations of platform and really doesn't offer that much new for the buck, right? The fact they've even scrapped the multiplayer, so you're technically getting less of the game. But because what? You put a little bit of a new coat of paint on it. Well, guess what? Gears of War Ultimate Edition did that and only charged you half the price. Plus, they gave you more game, better multiplayer, PC content was cut. You name it. Like Xbox does the same thing, but they don't take you to the cleaners to do it. Sony right now just seems like they're literally exploiting their audience, and I don't like that. And I don't think any legitimate PlayStation fan could sit back and go, "Bravo, Sony! We just love this. You guys are implementing the extra $10 on your games. You have you have none of this smart. What do you call it? Smart delivery. Like a lot of the Xbox games, you only got to buy one copy, and you can play them on either or. But PlayStation's got a copy for each freaking console. If you're doing back compatibility, like I don't know, like there's stuff that just doesn't make sense. Again, total exploitation of their fan base and they're willing to pay the money no matter what. Nintendo's been doing it. That's a story all of its own altogether. Nintendo's completely fell off the turnip wagon. But the problem is, they're selling carrots to the friggin' rabbits. You know what I mean? So no one cares over
Right.
Nintendo land. They're like, I'll pay 80 for Breath of the Wild. It's been out since 2017. Still $80 Canadian. But yeah, I'll buy it again. I can't even explain the level of dumbassness is over Nintendo land. But I guess it's because, again, they appeal to a different freaking audience. And I love Nintendo. I got a Switch. I buy the games too. But it's like Nintendo on the GameCube did Nintendo Selects. Nintendo on the Wii did Nintendo Selects. Nintendo on the Wii U did Nintendo Selects. Guess what they don't do on the Switch? No Nintendo Selects. Games are still full price. Why the F is that, Nintendo? Well, you're going to say because it's on a cartridge. Well, geez Louise, you think after what, 5-6 years now, the cost of cartridges have been done, you could at least make your games, 30% off the retail when they've been out for so long. But
And
they
and,
keep
and let's
selling.
keep it real for a second. Those games
Right?
are digital the same price.
That too. That's another problem I have with the whole digital ecosystem. When they were talking about that originally, well, go digital, everything's going to be cheaper. Bullshit. Because they're not cheaper out of the box. You got to wait for a sale. Now, there may be more digital sales than there are physical sales, but I've been going in and getting way better deals on the physical shit than I've been getting on
Yes.
the stores on digital. I really have. I'm going in and getting them for half the price. Game be $30 at my Walmart over here if I buy it on a disc, and it's still $40. But it's 20% off on the digital store. Like, shouldn't it be automatically right out the gate like 10% or 15% cheaper because you avoid the middleman, you don't have to press a disc, all that shit, right? You think so, but it ain't.
You would have thought a long time ago that there would have been like a $5-10 decrease in games because of them not having to
Exactly.
manufacture these discs and put them out there and third party it up for who's the disc manufacturer, let's team up with them and have them do it or whatnot. Or yeah, so like you would have thought that game prices would have went down a little bit, and a lot of people are out here saying, oh man, like the way that time's going, like inflation and whatnot, they should be way more. I'd pay like $100 for a game. And I was like, why are you out here yelling that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Quit telling people that because then they're gonna put
And
it at $100.
and and I say this about any industry. It's like the sports industry. It's like a fighter or a boxer. When they lose, you know how there's always these fighters that never lose until they get the championship and then they lose. Because everybody gets to the top of the mountain. There's only one way to go once you're at the pinnacle, and that's to go down. And what happens when you're the champ, when you're at the top, when fans start blowing steam up your ass that you're the best, you become complacent. You start to take advantage of things. Instead of being innovative, you become procrastination, right? This is the thing. You always have to watch the hungry dog, the hungry competitor. They're the ones gunning for you. They're coming. They're training harder. They're working harder. They're doing shit that you used to do, but you forgot how to do it because you got so used to counting money instead of trying to count your fans and your followers and showing them why you appreciate getting there and rewarding them for getting you there. Instead, you're exploiting them. I hate that. This is where Microsoft now is starting to pick up a little steam. They've had to change the game, but they're starting to get hungry again. They know what it's going to take to get back to the pinnacle, sort of to climb the ladder again. And the other companies don't like it because Microsoft is forward thinking right now. They're pushing the industry in a totally different direction than it has been and that it's used to. And Sony doesn't like it. And to some degree, Nintendo doesn't like it. But Nintendo, like I said, they're the anomaly. They kind of get away by running their ship off a completely different cliff. I don't know how that works, but they do. But Sony is so similar. Their consoles are so similar in terms of power, performance, the engines they use. It all comes down to the games. Xbox hasn't delivered that for the last couple of years. But by God, next year, crossing my fingers, this 2023 should be a banner year for the Xbox platform. If it's not, dude, I don't even know what to say, right? I'll have a long podcast on it. But next year should be a banner year. It should be one for the ages, and Xbox should soar, certainly in terms of subscriptions and even consoles sold at that point. Might be getting off topic here, though.
Okay, and I want to hit the chat real quick because they've been saying some pretty interesting stuff in there. And I love some of the stuff that you just got done saying, Newf. It's very true. They kind of, you know, they kind of do some stuff to themselves and then cry wolf when
Sure.
somebody takes a better route than they took, or somebody used a similar route that they took but did it better. Like what I was saying about the rewards program and the backwards compatibility. It's not that you've never done that before. Xbox just did it better this time, and you guys don't like it.
Exactly.
But off to the chat. RSJ fan says, PlayStation has lost me. John Wolf says, love the PlayStation 5, hate Jimmy's crying. Facts. Dark Optimus says, definitely hate that Jim Ryan is crying. and then uh and then John Wolf says again, Don Matrick hurt the brand and Jim is doing the same to the PS5, no doubt. In my mind, it's still a fantastic system. It has some great games, not judging the hardware or games, just the direction of
Yeah.
Sony, which is fair, which is very fair. And then Dark Optimus goes to say that I also love my PS5, but there is a problem with the leadership and their gouging of their customers. Facts. For
Yeah.
goodness sakes, that's so true. I mean, and one of my biggest issues, and this was last year that I was complaining about it, but if it comes back up again, I'll definitely complain about it again because I remember Ghost of
Mhm.
Tsushima had the director's cut come out
Right.
and they were asking people to pay for haptic feedback. And I'm like, wait a second. Didn't I just spend $500 for this console to get the haptic feedback? Why are you now double charging me just to have that feature turned on? Like that
Mhm.
to me is
Yeah.
insane. Sure, if you want to charge extra for the um for the languages and maybe a couple other things, sure. But if this is a PS5 and I put in that game, I want
Yeah.
it to be the PS5 version. I shouldn't have to
Exactly.
go and buy the P. I mean, because let's get real. A lot of these games, you put the damn disc in, and all it's doing is saying, "Hey, you own it."
Yeah. That's it.
Right? The game is half the time getting downloaded from the internet. A lot of it's getting
Yes.
downloaded from the
Yes.
internet. The disc is just verifying it. Now, don't get me wrong. There are still a good amount of games out there where you can just boot
Right.
it up off of the disc and you can be completely offline and play your game. In fact, you can do that with Halo. While everybody was out there saying you can only play Halo if you have it online, that's not true. You unplug your system, turn it offline, throw in that disc of Halo, and watch it work. It will. My boy Mad Drex, big PlayStation dude, had to quiet his crowd because his crowd was saying, I don't know why you bought that game physical. And then he had to come out there and show everybody, yo, I'm a PlayStation dude, but y'all can't be lying about Xbox right now. Because there is some games that do that stuff just fine. But anyways, yeah, I just some of the
Like,
price gouging stuff is really, really frustrating over on the PlayStation side. And I'm
like,
hoping it gets a little bit better, but it's almost like we have to catch them slipping for them to
yeah.
actually do something about it.
I feel like for me personally, I feel like right now the only area that Microsoft has and still is lacking in, again, is just getting out the games. And it's even more magnified because of the fact they have bought all these high profile studios. They picked up Bethesda, right? And this is like, I don't know, like in the history of Bethesda, this is like the slowest I've ever seen them publish games, right? They were pumping them out, seeing like left, right, and center prior to getting snapped up by Xbox, and now all of a sudden it's like, where are the Bethesda games? You know what I mean? They're all coming. But on the other side, I feel like Sony has been largely reactionary. It's like they don't know what to do. They're just complacent because they're the industry leader. They can get away with, again, on the strength of their first party titles. But everything else, it feels like, let's see what Xbox is going to do and let's try to copy it or emulate. Like they're obviously trying to copy the Game Pass, right? They're trying to do their own version of that service, but except they refuse to do day and date because they know that their games, most likely, especially their big games, are going to sell very well before they even drop them into their service. They may put them there, but they won't do it on the date because why not? I still said, and I said this, and I know a lot of people hate me when I say it. I don't think Xbox should be doing it either. I don't think Xbox first party games should be day and date and Game Pass. Game Pass can sell very well without those games being there. I think Microsoft should wait at least 6 months to a year and then put the games in. Why? You might call it double dipping, but that way I feel like anybody who really wants, say, to play Halo, Gears, Forza, or whatever, is going to go out and they're going to buy the digital copy or the physical copy, and they'll get it again when it comes to Game Pass. Um, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't need to. Now I know, like I said, that's I know that's a big selling feature game, but that's a lot of big reason a lot of people jumped in. I just feel they don't need to do it. I don't think Sony needs to do it. I don't think Xbox needs to do it. I feel it sort of devalues your games to a small degree, but again, that's just the way I see it because I would like if I was running the company, I would not have them there. At least have a window of 6 months. I'd maximize your sales through your digital store and in the store, and then by the time the game starts to see like those in-store discounts, yeah, let's throw it in our service. Anybody who isn't on board with Game Pass is definitely picking up when the game goes there. Like you don't need a Game Pass subscriber like day one. There's already hundreds of games there, even without Microsoft's offerings. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I see what you're saying. I like the idea of like 90 days of like just like 3 months. This game, you have to purchase it to play it, and then like after the 3 months, sure, or something like that. 6 months, even, sure, why not? I do see what you're saying, but I think that the direction that Xbox is and the way that they put themselves in such a tough predicament in the past, that they got the money to the point where they're just like, dude, we're Microsoft. Screw it. Let's just put it day in day, and we're gonna try to rip away as many customers that we possibly can. And that's the whole point behind it. And they know PlayStation doesn't want to do it, so that's why,
Right.
in my opinion, that they're doing it. They're doing it
Mhm.
because they know the opposition doesn't want to do it, and we're just like, sitting over here like the Rock saying, bring it, bring it, bring it. And PlayStation's like, I'm good. I don't want to do that.
Why
That is
Xbox
literally
refuses-
insane. That is literally insane. And Xbox is like, yeah, we're crazy. What you gonna do?
why Xbox will not put a really good, like amazing game in Games of Gold anymore because they don't have to. Because everything's on Game Pass anyway. They're like, frig it. Games of Gold doesn't matter to us anymore. It shouldn't matter to the gamers. It's like, here, we'll throw them a bone because we started something, but you're just like, every time I see the Games of Gold come out now and launch, I just like a big sigh. It's just like, really, like just, you know what I keep telling them? Stop with the free games or games at gold and give people the option. You give them option A, either take those games, or option B, give them a freaking $10 or $15 in-store credit. Whatever the value is of the games you're giving away, give them for somebody to spend it on DLC or some shit.
I'd honestly rather have more options in the rewards area,
Mm.
like of just like being able to access more rewards points, Microsoft rewards points, than get these free games from the
Yeah.
Xbox Gold thing. My buddy
You see the
Matt,
games
he
for
didn't.
PlayStation Plus this month? They're giving you Mass Effect. They're giving you the Mass Effect trilogy, a
Uh-huh.
remaster, and they're giving you Biomutant. Okay, and then there's some other game there as well. But that's a pretty damn good month. Yeah, you can say, okay, well, Mass Effect is in Game Pass, but this is the thing: they're giving you that game, and you don't have to subscribe to shit. Like, well, you got to have PlayStation Plus, I guess. But like, I'm paying $60 for Plus. If I'm
Yeah,
paying
the
for
most
Game Pass,
basic
it's
one will
17
give you
bucks a
that.
month, right? The most basic. You're getting them free of charge essentially as a bonus. It's cool. I don't know. That's awesome games, but Xbox games with gold, I'm still paying the same price for that as I pay for PlayStation Plus. And guess what I'm getting? Fucking games I never even heard of.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I was gonna say my buddy Matt, which he's in the chat right now, he always makes and cracks jokes about the gold Xbox Gold games, and he says you guys just need to stop with the Xbox Gold games and just throw the team a pizza party with whatever money that you're making doing that, because you guys are
Exactly.
just, because nobody wants that stuff. And then another person I have on the show, Cozy's like, I like some of those games, and we're like, sure you
Yeah,
do.
there's a gem in there every once in a while. You download and you go, oh, well, this is surprising. I get it. But
It's
still,
like
you're
one
like,
out of 100 games you might like.
yeah. When you look at the competitor and you look over and they're giving you like these big AAA offerings, and you look over on your side and it's like, oh, I look like I'm getting the kids meal where they're getting the buffet royale over there.
Right. It's unnecessary, but off to the chat before
Anyway,
we do a few other questions and pretty much start working our way up out of here. But let's see. It's John Wolf put out that Microsoft business approach is suffocating PS this generation, cheaper console, cheaper services, cheaper games. The tide has turned. I kind of agree with that, because you got, I mean, although PlayStation has been crushing it with their games. In my opinion, I think they're doing fairly well with their games and whatnot. Very consistent, but it definitely it seems like year in and year out since this generation has started, just this last 2 years, that Sony's been kind of on edge on what has Microsoft got up their sleeve next. What are you guys trying to do next? Where do we need to steer our ship? Because they are playing defense right now. Just like you said earlier, once you're at the top, there's nowhere else to go but down. So right now, Sony's got that shield and they are trying to parry as much as they possibly can. But Xbox is getting stronger each each time. It seems like Sony might have crushed it with a new game or won some sort of fight. It's like fucking Persona, where it's like, oh my God, like I feel like I just beat the boss. Second part of the boss, third part of the boss, fourth part of the boss. This fight ain't over yet. Good luck. It's twice as hard as it was just a moment ago. It's just like, dude, they just came out with some games and they're like, oh, you know what? We got God of War and we got Horizon coming out this year. And Xbox was like, Activision Blizzard. And they're just like, oh shit, what do we do now? so it's just really interesting to watch. And then let's see. Matt Likes Games says, late to the show, but I know exactly what this is about. LOL. Mr. Bushido says, I love my PS5. I just refuse to buy their games directly from them because of their customer service. Come on, Bushido. All you need to do is buy 4 of them things, and you're getting top-notch customer service, brother. And then Matt Likes Games says, Sony doesn't seem to know their direction at this point. Like Newf said, Microsoft came in, shook things up, and now Sony is looking indecisive. For sure. Our RSJ fan says, new facts. Matt Likes Games, they penalized you for being a loyal day one customer for games like Ghost of Tsushima. You bought it for the PS4. Pay us more now for the PS5 version. Makes no sense. Sure. Yeah.
Look, when the 360 was popular in the PS3, right? Nintendo comes along and basically changes the game, right? They didn't compete with power. They didn't compete with the online service. But what they did do was gave people a console that was vastly different than anything Nintendo had previously done. And they came up with motion controls. And guess what the competition did? Nintendo changed the game. And they played along. So Microsoft comes out with Kinect, and PlayStation comes out with the PlayStation Move controllers. Only one was massively successful, and that was Nintendo. So the same is happening right now, but Xbox is changing the game through their Game Pass and service, games as a service model. They've changed the game. Sony isn't necessarily afraid of Microsoft's games. They're afraid of the business model, right? They don't, because traditionally they've always prided themselves on the console, selling consoles. So consoles in turn mean more consoles sold. It usually equates to more games sold, right? But when the business model changes and that's no longer how you make money, because making money now has got nothing to do sometimes with console reflective numbers. It's about engagement. It's about all the DLC. And a lot of these Game Pass games, they are making bank, even though they're inside of a service. They're making so much money now because of the exposure through, the DLCs, the skins, the microtransactions. They're making boat, right? They're taking things to the bank. And that scares the devil out of anybody, not just Sony, but anybody now that's trying to catch up in the game. Look, Google tried, and Google already failed. And we thought that Google had the power to come in and blaze a trail here with Stadia, and boy, did they fail, because they, again, thought it was going to be easy. They took for granted that Microsoft worked their way to get to where they were. It started back on the Xbox console in 2001. This is 2022. Right? That's where it started for them. It wasn't overnight. They went through a lot of trial and error. They went, they grew their player base from a couple million to multi-million.
They took significant L's.
Yeah.
Significant
They took
L's.
a lot of L's. They went through a lot of trial and error. They went through a lot. This is the thing that Google took for granted. Other companies take for granted. They just think, if you build it, they come. Well, building it is one thing, but making it run efficiently is another story. And Xbox got experience, not to mention they've got the bank roll to get through the tough times. Other companies are not so fortunate. That's where kind of Xbox is right now. trailblazers. Whether I like them or not, I don't like Microsoft's business model personally, but it's working for millions of players. I'm the anomaly. I'm the old cranky f-tard. Um, I know that I'm the anomaly here, so I'm not here to dissuade anything. Their model works for 98% of the population, right? So kudos to them.
Yep. John Wolfe preaches and says, all I've seen them do is cry. We can't, or he said, all I've seen them do is cry. We can't, our games day one. I'm guessing he said, you can't get our games day one on a service. We can't buy publishers. We can't have smart delivery. We don't have backwards compatibility. That is the PS5 marketing theme this generation. And then Dion Hayes slaps some facts down right now, which is like, it kind of knocked my socks off, even though I'm not a huge fan of this game. It just kind of sets the tone for me a little bit for where Xbox is going. And Dion Hayes says Monster Hunter Rise is coming to Xbox Game Pass. The game used to be on the Nintendo Switch. Coming in January, I want to say the 20th to kick off Xbox domination. And I'm like, dude, Monster Hunter, I'm gonna be honest, it's not my I don't love the game or whatnot. I'll definitely give it a try, and I have the other one. I actually got it from the homeboy Sensei, not Sensei Kills, but Sensei 808. Got it from him. Dope dude hooked me up with that. I played for a little while, and it was fun. But I only wanted to play that game multiplayer with other friends and whatnot. I didn't really see myself playing it alone. But I know that game is massive. A lot of people really like that game. In fact, I got into a party with like 10 other people, and all of them were high rank. I was the bitch. But for some reason, I was winning every single arm wrestling match. They couldn't take me. But anyways, that game's going to be huge, and that's a crazy way to kick off the year for Xbox. And then they're ending this year with High on Life, so it's going to be pretty interesting to see that game. But it's kind of a great way to kind of go into the next year, especially with having such a poor first party lineup. But let's see. Yeah. So, anyways, let's go on ahead and hit up some of these last little tidbit questions that just kind of tell me a little bit about where your head's at this generation. So, the first thing I'm going to ask you is what was probably the best 3 games that you've played this year? So it doesn't have to be games that came out this year, just best 3 games that you played in general this year.
Oh, that's a great question. Best 3 games I played this year. Well, obviously, it's going to be God of War Ragnarok, hands down. I mean, I knew I'd love the game because I loved the 2018 version. It's just absolutely phenomenal. I really love Stray, which is also nominated for Game of the Year. Thought that was a phenomenal surprise. I expected it to be decent. I didn't expect it to be as good as it was. So I really enjoyed the living hell out of that. Boy, like since the consoles have come out, there's been so many games, and like the Mass Effect trilogy. What can I say? Like it's a remaster of 3 of the best ever games of all time. I played the crap out of it on the Xbox One last year. It took me a while to beat it because, like I said, it takes me a while to beat anything these days. Dirty joke in there, I guess. But anybody knows
Insert
Newf
filth.
Nukem knows, yeah. Insert filth. You watch Gaming After Dark, you know. But like, there's been almost so many to mention. There's just so many games. I mean, right now I'm in dabbling with the Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga. I'm over on my Switch, and my God, like, just if you love Lego games, the Star Wars is a marriage made in heaven. Great little game. There's been so many good games in the run of a short 2 years, even despite the fact that so many games have been, canceled or delayed. Despite the fact there's just a lot to play out there, and there's something for everybody, and I'm having a blast. It's just I'm bouncing all over the place. That's why it's kind of hard to think of these things because I'm playing so many games. Like I just started Ghostwire Tokyo there, and like I'm really enjoying that game for what I've played of it so far, and yeah, I just been playing a ton of everything, and Modern Warfare 2. fantastic game. Multiplayer is amazing. I'm loving it to death so far. Campaign's been really good. So just so many great games, but those are a couple of them anyway.
So you said Stray, God of War,
Stray,
and
God of
what?
Ragnarok, and Mass Effect Trilogy, the
And
remaster.
Mass Effect. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Solid.
Mhm.
Before I move any further, I gotta ask you about your content creation real quick. You don't have to go. I mean, you can go long on it if you want. It doesn't bother me. I'm just sitting here chilling,
Yeah,
listening
sure,
to
yeah.
your history. But if you want to go quick, you can as well. It's totally up to your pace. But I want to know, like, how the heck did you start actually getting into this content creation stuff and whatnot? So obviously, you've been gaming for quite some time. What generation did you start content creating?
Okay. Well, let's just first start with the name, right? Newf Nukem. A lot of people ask me where that comes from. That was, in a sense, it was almost accidental. Okay, now the reason I say that is because prior to Newf Nukem, for the better part of most of the 360 generation and well into the Xbox One, I was literally known as Ivan Wakanov. That was my gamer tag, and this is
Oh,
before I even had a channel.
wow.
Yeah, Ivan Lakanov. I'll spell it in the chat because it looks like a Russian name. And I actually had people ask me, "Are you a Russian?" And I said, "No. Just read it slowly, and you'll get the joke." So I was that. That was my gamer tag for a long time. Prior to then, of course, eventually it finally caught on after I don't know how many years, but somebody complained, and Microsoft gave me the strike, and I had to change my name. And then I was trying to think of a bunch of names that would fit. And I said, well, you know what? I'm tired of this change in names because I literally, I after Ivan Wakanov basically died, I went through 4 or 5 other gamer tags, and they wouldn't last me even a week because I guess once they had me flagged, it was like you better watch this guy because he's coming up with some creative names. I mean, I had Liquor Puss, yeah, Ivan Wakanov. There was Liquor Puss. I had oh god, there was 2 or 3 other really funny ones that I had, but those are some of the best ones. And they all got flagged. So I finally said, I'm going to make a name that hopefully it's original. It sounds cool, but it's not shouldn't cause me any grief. So I came up with Nuke Nukem. As some, I'm big. I like Duke Nukem, and I have a kind of an explosive personality. Anybody who knows me knows I can be pretty off the wall. Um, and I'm from Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada. So that's shortened as for Newfie. Um, and Nukem, obviously, kind of a homage to Duke Nukem. It just kind of rhymed. Newf Nukem, right? There you go. So once I kind of settled on the name, then of course I started just stumbling. I stumbled across a few podcasts. Okay. And the first one I ever really caught, I didn't even know these gaming podcasts really existed at the time when I started getting in. This was around probably 2013. I was still working as a DJ at a radio station. And I started watching YouTube. I really didn't watch a whole lot of YouTube at the time, but I started picking it up. And then I stumbled across a podcast. Some of you might know it. It's called BGST, Big Gamers Small Talk. A guy by the name of Next Gen 720, aka Zaire. He was the host, and he had a couple of very entertaining individuals on there by the name of Crap Gamer, the Mooch. There was Beastfire Tim Dog, or we just know him as Tim Dog, and even a guy who's got a pretty damn big channel himself, Mr. Dealer Gaming, was all part of BGST at the time. And of course, like every podcast, it goes through its growing pains, its evolutions, and members in, members out, so to speak. Some people started doing their own channel, doing different shows. That kind of led me to my first ever guest appearance, which was on Crossfire, oddly enough, with the Mooch. He gave me a shot. We kind of talked. I said, Mooch, I'd be interested in doing a podcast with you if you're willing to have me on. He said, sure. And I said, I'm in a radio, so I'm not afraid of a microphone. I'm not afraid to chat. I'm fairly knowledgeable about games. I've been around the business a long time. So he had me on. The rest is kind of history. From there, I started landing. Some guest gigs. I got voted onto a panel. My first ever show that I was part of was with She Wolf and Lady Foxfire, GKB, and it was the Console Corner. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it, but if you go back and you look up some of the videos, it was one of the most dynamic and coolest podcasts out there. They ran their podcast, so it was almost like a TV newscast. They literally had a panel, they had a desk, they had everything set up. It was him and his wife, GKB and his wife, She Wolf, and then they would have 3 or 4 of his panel members, video up on the screen. It was really well done. Suggest people to go back and look at because it was really ahead of its time. And I got voted on that show. They literally had this like showdown where they had like guest versus guest each and every week, and then people had to vote. So I went up against one guy one week in a vote, and up another guy against another week in a vote. I don't know, I went with 3 or 4 different guys, and the community voted for me to be the next panel member, which was amazing. And I destroyed it. Apparently, like it was a unanimous vote. They liked me the best, so I ended up on there. After that regular gig, I also became a panel member of called Xbox Nation. I don't know if anybody ever remembers that, but Crap Gamer basically ran that podcast. It was on Wednesday nights, and it was him, Mooch, and a few other different guys. Actually, maybe that was the one Dealer was on. I don't think Dealer was ever on BGST, sorry, but I ended up on Xbox Nation, and I was a regular panel in there until basically the latter half of 2017. What happened was, of course, I lost my job at the radio station. I ended up going through a bit of a funk, and I ended up with different jobs where my times, that's why it's always hard for me to make an 8 p.m. Showing of any podcast, because I don't get off work till at least 6 o'clock in the evening. By the time I get home, get something to eat, get my computer booted up, if it boots at all, it's almost an hour in. And I was like, I don't want to be jumping into the middle of every podcast. So unless you guys are going to move your start dates, I can't be on these shows, right? So I had to back out of a few podcasts. Then I tried a couple on my own, different things. I had one with Attack the Glitcher called the Game Dosage Podcast. Some of you guys remember that. Jago Kukin, Invader Gaming, and a few other people. And then I branched off, like I said, and I started making my own. And the first one I really dabbled into was I had a few different things, goofing with Newf, and did some what was called gaming spitbits with Newf Nukem, where I'd make these premeditated videos, and they were pretty cool. And then eventually I came down with something called Gaming After Dark. And the original host for Gaming After Dark was me and a lovely lady by the name of Primal Eve, who was suggested to me by Jago Kukin. We had an amazing dynamic, the two of us, but life got in the way and she had to leave the show. Then I searched for 2 new panel members. I ended up with the middle-aged game guy. Well, it was actually Titan Drago. Yeah, the Mag. And it's really funny how this stuff works, right? Because Mag's first ever guest appearance was on Gaming After Dark. Literally, he was on my show one night, and I think it was literally the day later, Mr. Boomstick XL extended him an invitation to be on Primetime Gaming. So then he went over there and he started up there. And then a couple weeks later, I said, Mag, would you like to be a full-time member in Gaming After Dark? So that was me, Titan Drago, and Middle Age Game Guy. The rest is kind of history. We had an amazing dynamic. We ran the show for well over a year, and then the Mag, he got a few promotions at work, and again he had to leave the show. And then just recently, Titan had to leave the show because it was me and Titan, because his work and timing, and he had to leave. And now I've got a different panel. It's myself, Cerebral Paul, Wise Old Gamer, and Darth Practice. They are the new Gaming After Dark. I love those guys immensely. Don't get me wrong. But the dynamic's never been the same, and it's unfortunate, but that's just the way it goes. Trying to find people that, there's lots of great gaming people out there, but not everybody jives together. Not every panel's got instant chemistry. Me, Titan, and Mag, we definitely had it. Me and Primal had it. It's a little bit different, but it is what it is. So that's where I'm at right now, since 2013 to 2022. So it'll be nearly 10 years next year, probably by the spring. Full time in this business, content creator, yes, but creator, I don't know. What I do is very minuscule and very, I don't know. It's just like I see some people out there put a lot of work in their podcasts and great graphics and great overlays and intros and the whole 9 yards. I'm just not that tech savvy or even that dedicated to sit down and come up with all this shit and do it all the time. I know how to talk. That's my forte. I can get on a camera. I hate being on camera, by the way. It's why you don't see me very often. I won't say I don't turn it down, but I'd rather not be on a camera. I don't look like looking at my fat fucking face out here all the time. But that's where I'm at, man. That's kind of it in a nutshell. Kind of the long version, I guess. But yeah, it's been a crazy ride, man. It's been a crazy ride. And as you mentioned to me prior to going on the show, I took a little bit of sabbatical. I'm going to say this right now. You're better off just closing down your channel than taking a sabbatical, because it's a channel killer. My channel took a massive hit. I lost viewers. I don't know if they ever did come back. Algorithms are all off. Numbers are definitely down. I never got into this for the numbers of the money, so that's irrelevant. But I'm not going to lie that once you sort of get a taste of it and you start getting a little bit of a revenue stream, it kind of hurts not to go. It's kind of having a part-time job, right? Something to rely on, and it's nice. But when you don't have it, it kind of really sucks.
Right.
You know, that sort of thing. So, but it's it's not like I'm making a living. I can't quit my day job. I wish I was at that point, but it's not. So right now, like I said, run 2 podcasts Tuesday nights, 10 Eastern. It's Gaming After Dark, and on Sunday mornings, I run an Xbox Century, more of a general rated podcast that family and friends can watch without worried about vulgar words or sexual innuendos. At Good Morning Xbox, great little panel over there, and that's Sunday mornings.
Okay, that's dope. Now, anytime I, throw get on, gaming after dark or whatnot, it's around the time that Arnold
Yeah.
appears.
Yes.
Because on Tuesdays I have my own show, in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
I do this very show on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's going to be changing soon. In case anybody's listening to that, here soon we're going to be me and Loke are going to be doing just news during the day on Tuesday, and then I'm only going to have one Behind Them Sticks episode every Thursday each week, just so people can have a little short show that they can watch. And then if they feel like watching something long, there's plenty of other content to watch. But 100% of my content now is like 2 hour minimum. And I feel kind of bad because it's just like, if you want to hop in and just see some stuff, you have to sit for a long time to see some stuff. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna start giving out that short little taste. But yeah, I want to talk about Arnold. What's up with that? That thing is awesome that you do with Arnold impersonations, and it's super duper funny, man. What made you come up with that and stick with it?
Well, the Arnold impersonation, I've been at that. I mean, I grew up as an Arnold Schwarzenegger fan. I'm a child of the '80s. I mean, I obviously love Stallone, Van Damme, Schwarzenegger, um, all these guys, and Schwarzenegger was just one of those I just started doing. Of course, it started as your traditional one-liners, it's not a tumor, get to the chopper, I'll be back, all that sort of stuff. And I focused on that. But then it really started to become something a little bit different when I was able to not only just, take the one-liners, but literally do like an ad lib, constantly come in and come up with creative stuff and say it in Arnold's voice. And almost everywhere I go, it's unanimous that most people think it's at least one of, if not the best Arnold impression they've ever heard. And some guys will say the coolest thing is that I can ad lib. I can say lines, like I can sit here and talk to you in doing his voice, where most comedians or people that do impressions, a lot of times they can only do like that one word. Like there's a lot of people try to do the Kratos thing, and everybody goes, boy. I think by now there's probably about, almost everybody could probably do that one word, boy. But I don't even know how I do it. But as far as Arnold doing it like that and being funny and stuff, that it takes a little something, and I enjoy doing it. And I don't know, I broke it somewhere on a podcast, it just kind of stuck. And then along the lines of Gaming After Dark, it just came up with the segment like, let's do an Ask Arnold, like get the audience interacting and asking some wacky questions and see what kind of answer I can come up with.
Well, John Wolf in the chat said, "Hey Arnold, are you excited for Callisto Protocol?"
Okay, well, I got to do this to answer that question. Come on, who's not excited for the Callisto Protocol? Can you hear me, John?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just want to make sure that the voice is there because I have to turn the camera off because I can't do it with the camera on. But come on, it's not excited for the ballistic protocol. Look, I call it ballistic protocol. It could be ballistic. I mean, the game absolutely looks nuts. Have you seen that? Have you seen the trailers? I mean, there's this crazy tentacle things crawling out of the wall and it's smacking you in the face. I mean, anybody who's played Dead Space know that today I've still got shit stains on my underwear from playing that game. And I'm going to come out here and I'm going to play this game, which looks crazy. I mean, some of these crazy monsters, they look like some of my ex-girlfriends. It's that scary. So you want to play the Callisto Protocol? Then make sure you pick it up tomorrow. It's going to scare the living crap out of you. So go, get to the chopper, do it. Get to your local Walmart. Go now. There you have
I love it. That was fantastic. Thank you, brother. Thanks for giving everybody a little taste of what you do every week on Gaming After Dark. That was fantastic. That dirty drawl thing was funny. Oh
Yes.
man, Master Clown says love it. Uh, John Wolf's cracking up, and yeah, Asha's yeah. I mean, it's really fun, and I really enjoy when somebody gets out of their
Yeah.
comfort zone and does some stuff like that, because that's just something else.
Yeah, and then besides Arnold, I came up with two original ones because it just I love Arnold, but it's like anything. If you overdo something, people get tired of it. So I try to keep it to a bare minimum and try to keep it fresh. And then I came up with two other ones. One's called Cletus Dunmore. He's basically a hillbilly guy, and you probably heard me say that a billion times. Well, hey, Fiddly Diddly, how'd you get on, guys? It's good to see all you guys up here in the chat. I hope that you're going out there and buying that Callisto Protocol because it's going to be a fantastic game. Yeah, let me tell you, I'm going to run through that game naked, and I'm going to stick my Fiddly Diddly into every Wiggly Diggly. Yes, indeedy.
you
Right,
you sound so cartoonish when you do that. That's
yeah,
awesome.
that one. And then, of course, I do this one called Safe House Sam. It's a weird story how that one came about. We were talking about the game at the time. I think it was Back for Blood, and getting, of course, we were doing a comparison to Left 4 Dead and how you used to have to get to the safe house. And then I started doing something because I know where I was talking to someone in a game chat, and I started doing this crusty old voice, and then it just took on a persona of its own, and then it became Safe House. So those of you who are not familiar, it's like, yeah, guys, it's the Safe House. I just want to tell you, it's about time the Ham Solo went and invited Newf Nukem onto his show because Newf Nukem is one of the craziest, most entertaining pieces of crap I've ever seen in YouTube. But that's okay. Some people hate him, some people like him. You don't have to put up with them. You just got to bear with it, okay? All right, sometimes he's hot, sometimes he's not. But let me tell you, I am always on fire. I'm 100 grade A asshole, and I am here to prove it. I am. Yeah, Save Out Sam, and I'm as crusty as it goes, cockasses.
You sound like you have one of those trachs in your throat. And you're like,
yeah, that's kind of like
my name is Sammy and I'm a smoker.
He's the kind of guy who doesn't smoke cigarettes, he eats them. You know what I mean? So I came up with that character, and people love him because when I get going on him, man, I say some of the most off the wall crazy stuff you've ever heard. But yeah, it's crazy. But I have a lot of fun with it, and the people that come out to GAD, that's what they love and expect. And I can't have a show without those three guys showing up and doing the Ask Arnold, and it's great. It's what makes Gaming After Dark unique. It's it's a pretty typical podcast, but our panel they're all pretty off the wall people. Sir X-Men's in the chat, by the way, and he was a podcaster or a panel member for a short couple of months until work and different things didn't agree with him either. So he's had to back away. He does come in for a guest appearance. He was there last Tuesday, but that's kind of where we're at. It seems like that always happens. I've had to leave podcasts for the same reason, so I totally understand. Life gets in the way, man, and we can't always predict what's going to happen, especially when you're an adult and you've got commitments or kids or whatever. And finding a time slot. This is the thing. Finding a time slot where, when I was a member of Xbox Nation, trust me, I could probably count on at least my two hands how many podcasts there were. There might have been a ton more, but there certainly wasn't. Maybe it's just because I'm around the community more, but now it's like everybody has one. And trying to find a time slot where you don't feel like you're insulting somebody or treading on their toes to get in is near impossible. So I've just gotten to the point where, you know what? F it. I'm going to go for it. I can't wait around and wait till this guy's podcast ends or this guy's podcast starts. You got to do your own thing. Hopefully find your own audience. And for those who can't catch you live, just hope to God that maybe they like and enjoy your channel on the replay.
Yeah, and speaking of that, thank you everybody that's here this evening supporting me, showing Newf some love out here. Make sure you all hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it. If you guys haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. Help support your brother Ham Solo. I'm trying to hit 500 by the end of the year. Getting kind of close, but not quite close enough to be comfortable yet. So help a brother out if you can. It'd be super duper dope. But just got literally a couple questions left before we get out of here. First of them being, because we went through all these different games and consoles that you had, I'm wondering if you have a few that stuck into your memory that you hate. So I want to know, what games Do you remember playing that you were kind of excited to throw into your console, and then once you got it in there, like an hour or two later, you're just like, "What the fuck was I thinking? This game is ass."
That's a From Software title. I buy them thinking, God, I'm going to give it another shot. I really want to like this game. It looks amazing and everybody's raving about it. And then I put it in and I get my ass completely obliterated. Then I start to rage. Then I start to swear. Then controllers start to get thrown or broken or worse. And then I'm like, yeah, this game not only cost me 60, 70, or $80 to buy new, now it's costing me my patience, my sanity, and a controller on top of it. So it's like, you know what? I get why people love those games, but honestly, not my bag. So I'm going to say any From Software game. I've been through the ringer already. Bloodborne was one, people rave about this, and I tried to like it, just couldn't do it. You know what? Give me a save anywhere feature. Perhaps I would like all those games, but until you come up with a save on the fly, because I'd literally be saving after, like, before and after every boss, and be like, yep, save, so I can just keep on going. If I fail 100 times, great. But there's nothing that bothers me more than doing the old 80s retro gambit, and that is getting your ass kicked and having to go way back through a very long, monotonous checkpoint, beat all the bosses, and on top of that, you probably already lost half of the shit you gained. So you got to go back and find everything and level up again and get all that stuff. And I'm like, nah, that's like basically not only does this game punish you for being bad, it really punishes you for being bad. You're going to lose all your shit too, buddy. Like, you needed that level 100 sword, but it's back there now surrounded by a bunch of gangbangers and in the middle of nowhere. And you got to do that all over again. I'm like, yeah, that's no thank you.
That would be an insane but dope accessibility option if they had like save anywhere,
Save
where you
anywhere.
could have that like turned on or turned off, like depending on how you want to play the game. Instead of like, because I know like when Elden Ring came out, people were saying, this game isn't for everybody. They should possibly make it more accessible, make an easier mode or whatnot. And it's like, dude, to me, an easier mode would just being able to save it somewhere, just wherever I
Yes.
want.
Yeah,
That is easy mode.
that's not even dumbing down the bosses. That's not changing anything about the difficulty. It's just letting people have a second chance without having to go through the grind. That's it. And then if I want to die 20 times at a boss, great, but I'm not starting over and I'm not going back halfway through a level, not losing half of my shit. Just okay, playing the boss until I get the rhythms and the methods, and then I beat them, and then I still feel happy and move on. And I don't think that would change the game in the least. And you could even have the option to turn that off. Checkpoint system or save anywhere system. Is it that freaking hard? I don't think so, but I digress.
I feel you. I feel you. All right. So From Software games, not your bag. Got it.
No.
What game are you most excited for from 2023 and beyond? And it can be more than one game because I used to do this question and say, give
Yep.
me one game, but it's just too hard. Especially 2023 is going to be nuts.
Yeah, it's going to be a crazy year, and I don't really know the timeline. Plus, we got to assume that things are going to come out on schedule and not have massive delays. But starting off, I'm going to say one of the early ones is Forspoken. Can't wait to play that game. Looks phenomenal. Again, another feather in the cap for PlayStation owners. Dying to play that. End of the year, Starfield. What can I say? I know very little about it, but it does look damn intriguing. It comes with a lot of hype. It is a Bethesda. They know what's riding on the game. The fans know what's riding on the game. And I can't wait to jump into the world of Starfield. It looks incredible. Let's hope it's as good as it looks. If so, we're in for a real treat and a great way to sort of perhaps cap off 2023, and perhaps it'll be good enough to get some Game of the Year award nominations, which I think Microsoft desperately needs to start getting more of those to they need to show up at the Game Awards, not just in commercials, but literally they need to be part of all those categories and part of those conversations, I think, because it does add some mystique. It adds a bit of value. And, it's, they need to shake that, they can make lots of games, but they're not amazing games. I mean, a lot of people forget that last year they had a bunch of great games, right? But they weren't necessarily Xbox exclusive. Like they had Psychonauts 2, which was a multiplat. But there was they had Flight Simulator. But then again, it's Flight Simulator, so that's only going to apply to a select amount of people that are really going to enjoy that. Some people just
Forza and Halo.
yeah, and then Forza Horizon 5, right? And Halo Infinite, which I don't know why was totally ignored this year for the Game Awards, considering it didn't get nominated for nothing last year because it came out too late, apparently.
But it's funny how the Players Game of the Year. It got voted for like Player Game of the Year, but the game of the year. Game of the year was It Takes Two.
Yeah,
It was
you know,
weird.
so it's obviously Starfield. I don't know what the deadline, or I don't know. We have no idea what the timeline is for Hellblade 2, but I can't wait for that. Very excited for that one. It's looking phenomenal. Ninja Theory has not really let me down yet with hardly any of their games. And I think that Hellblade 2 is not only going to be a great game, but I think it's going to be a system seller. I think it's going to be one of those pinnacle games where you go, oh shit, that game looks like it's next gen. This is why we paid $600, $500, whatever you want to say, for an Xbox Series X. That's what I'm talking about. Hopefully that game is going to deliver. I think that it will. And beyond that, man, anything Gears related. I'm a Gears of War head. I can't wait for whatever they bring next. Coalition is literally one of the best studios in the business, and certainly one of the most, I think, underrated. They never get enough credit. It always seems to go to the PlayStation guys. These guys at the Coalition know what they're doing. Proof was in Gears 5. Proof was in the DLC that they made. These guys are on top of their shit, making one of the best looking games and best engines in the business. I can't wait. Coalition's amazing.
The fidelity that they put into their games is outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
To see to see what they did with Unreal Engine 4 at the end of the Xbox One generation is nuts. And we've only seen like tech tests and stuff like that for Unreal Engine 5. And that, I mean, just that Matrix demo, freaking insane.
Crazy.
Right? We've seen some stuff from the game that hasn't came out yet, but we're hoping. What's that game in fucking Stalker? Stalker 2. That game looks insane. I can't imagine what the Coalition's going to look like, because they have a game that they're working on that's not Gears.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got Gears that they're going to work on. I can't imagine what Unreal Engine 5 with the Coalition having time and not having to hurry up and rush something out. They got time to just take their time, put all the details they want into it, and then ship it. I can't imagine how good that's going to look. That's going to be insane. That's going to be one of those games that's utilizing the tools inside of the Xbox. And I'm excited to see it. I'm really excited. But moving on to last two questions. One question is going to be kind of a stacked question, which that stacked question is, what frustrates you about gaming, if anything, and what's a dream come true?
Well, it's easy to find out what frustrates me about gaming. All right, a couple things. First of all, let's just start with the whole buying games. I get the market has changed, and I get that I'm an old school gamer, but what really frustrates me is, why can't we have a little bit of both? In 2017, 2018, when I walk into a lot of my local retailers, let's just say they had 100% space for games. That has now dwindled down to about 25%. A lot of stores I used to love visiting, and I don't even bother walking into anymore. You know why? Because I walk in and they get nothing for me to look at. They get nothing for me I want to buy. Half the time I want a game, guess what? They don't have a copy. And they certainly don't have them for Xbox. If I can find the game I'm looking for, 9 chances out of 10 it's on a PlayStation. They don't have Xbox. Why? Because retailers forbid to carry most games unless it's one of the big ones. There's no trouble buying Call of Duty, Madden, FIFA, or NBA. These games that notoriously sell $10 million copies to a blink of an eye. But you try to find anything that's a little bit more obscure, it's very tough for me to find the Xbox version. That means, yes, can I get them? Sure. But it means I gotta go through going online, using a credit card or whatever, waiting days to get it, when I wish I could just walk in the store and come home and install it that very night, but then I gotta do the waiting game. This is part of my issue, right? This is what pisses me off. Again, this is where I have the problem with the industry. Industry's moving forward, and I'm getting left behind. People say, well, you got to get with the times. Well, yes and no, right? But at the same time, my money is still my money, and how I want to play my games, or how I want to consume them, or if I want to collect them, should be my choice. And I don't like anybody dictating where my money goes, because I know what happens when digital ecosystems take over. Prices go way to fuck up. They charge you what they want. There's no stopping it. And it goes up $1 today, and then it's quietly goes up $1 or $2 tomorrow. We see this trend all the time. Look at Netflix. Since they became essentially a streaming monopoly, they've done nothing now but gouge the shit out of people. And on top of it, they gouge people to make content I could give a rat's F about. Like 90% of the shit that's on Netflix right now, I don't have the time or the patience to watch half. To me, it's garbage. It's nothing but homegrown shows. TV show, TV show, TV show. I don't care. I want big summer AAA blockbuster movies. I want them at my fingertips. But now I got to get Disney, and I got to get Hulu, and I got to get this one, and I got to get that one, and I got to get something else. Everybody got their own content. I got to get Paramount to watch Halo. I'm going to have to get HBO to watch The Last of Us. I'm going to have. You see where I'm going with this? We complained about cable TV years ago. We complained because cable was too expensive.
You're going to have to get Prime to watch Fallout.
Right? But now we all got subscriptions coming out our assholes. We're literally like most people now are probably upwards of $100 a month easy on subscription services. When does it stop, and when do they stop gouging it? Because you know they bait you with the easy, it's $3.99 or it's $4.99, and you're like, yeah, that's cool. But when $10.99 becomes $11.99, and then everybody else starts tripling, and we talked about this with the digital sales on the games. Aren't they theoretically, and shouldn't they always be cheaper than the physical copies? Yes, I say so. That's what we were told when they started leaning that way. Hasn't happened, right? So, like I said, that's a whole nother can of worms. I could sit here all night and tell you about the 1 million reasons. You know, Overwatch. So, like, for example, just one more. I went out and bought a copy of Overwatch not that long ago, right? I picked up a copy of the first game. Now, guess what I have now? I've got a beer coaster. Okay? Because somewhere along the line, they dropped Overwatch. They dropped Overwatch 1. It doesn't exist. Now you're basically forced into Overwatch 2. I haven't even really played Overwatch 2. But I'm just saying, right off the bat, they nullified one game, dumped you into the second game, which is now free to play. So I guess they're like, well, the other one's free to play, so who cares about the first game? But you see what I'm saying there? It's like they just do what they want now. It's just, let's get rid of this game and dump this and kill a server to this and kill a server to that. Once everything starts becoming into this ecosystem, we just start getting screwed. Half our games start becoming beer coasters, or they don't exist at all. And our content gets nullified, or locked behind paywall, and shit don't work. I have a million reasons why stuff like this pisses me to love off. Because you know what? When I had the 360, it was simple. I popped the game in, and it friggin' worked. If I had a download, guess what? Maybe 512 megs, a gig at best. But rarely was a game consuming half your hard drive and 2 or 3 hours every time. I've said this to my buddies a few times. Every time I come home, boot up my effing console and go to play half of my games, guess what? Update. Sit there waiting. And yeah, I can play a game while I'm updating, but guess what happens? Then the system decides it's going to really make it really slow. So a lot of times I got to sit there and just wait for the download, because if I play a game while it's downloading, it kills the download speeds, and it'll take me like an eternity to download it.
Yeah, that's a bad thing on Xbox.
Maybe I'm doing something wrong. I don't know. But look, that's okay. That's one part. Open world games. There's another one. I cringe at the thought of open world anything anymore, because most of them, honestly, they're just padded for the sake of being long. If the missions are generally interesting and really make a difference to the game, I'm cool. But most of this stuff, and because I'm a little bit of a, what do you call it, like a completionist, or have a little bit of sort of like a ADD kind of thing, like, or what do you call it? I don't know, obsessive compulsive, I guess is a better way to say it. Like, I want to complete the missions. I don't like leaving shit out of games. You know what I mean? So I get wrapped up doing all these side missions, and then half the time you spend so much time doing a side mission and you keep getting killed, realizing, oh, well, I guess I shouldn't be doing this side mission just yet, because apparently I need combo A from this weapon that I got by doing that dungeon back there that I'm going to need for later on in the game. So I'm just like, so a lot of times you kind of just waste so much time because you're trying to get stuff that essentially you're not ready to get, but they don't really put a wall up in front of you and say, well, you can't go here. No, it's kind of like you can go there, you're going to get your ass kicked, and you feel like, well, I guess I shouldn't have been here until I was level 22. Like, it's too much RPG, Japanese RPGs. I could care less for a lot of them, especially the turn-based stuff. I do like Japanese RPGs. The turn-based shit, it drives me absolutely bonkers. I can't stand, what do you call it? Strategic games like XCOM and all that stuff. Those games can kiss my ass.
So you don't. So you're not trying to get Marvel's Midnight Sun. You don't want to play the card game.
No, if it's got cards or it's got any of that shit in it, where it's like strategy, like Halo Wars and stuff. It's the only Halo I couldn't even play. Didn't even touch it. It wasn't my bag. I I can't even try to like that stuff. This is not for some people. But it's not my bag. So I still got a lot of issues with a lot of things. I got issues with the prices of everything getting out absolutely outrageous. Um, headsets are absolutely nuts these days for the price of half of them, at least for a good one. There's a lot of things. Like first of all, the Xbox. You kind of need storage. We're very limited, especially with the Series S. And you're going to give us these little Seagate cards that are massively overpriced. Okay, this isn't even like, okay, it's a little expensive. Like, no, they're like stupid. Like,
It's
come
like
on,
the
guys,
same
do it the
price as a damn
program.
console.
I'm not paying a Series S to put a memory chip in my console, but essentially you need them because half the games don't run properly without it, unless you can. And then, okay, so use your internal, but that means you're doing what? Deleting stuff, adding stuff, deleting stuff. It's like that gets annoying. Then the buddy of yours wants to play the game. Well, guess what? I got to install it again. Yeah, see, this is where the old blood pressure starts to go with Google Posts and just chill, man. It's not a big deal. Like it's just, gaming was just super fun and super simple on the 360 and the PS3. And now it's just absolutely stupid. Like everything about gaming now, outside of the fact that our games are bigger and better than before, is stupid. Downloading is tougher, way too many updates, way too many delays, way too many glitches. Like it just feels like a effing conundrum out there. You know what I mean? Like I get worked up just thinking about it. It's like, what happened to gaming? And why is this so bloody complicated? What? Because you're doing 4K resolution? Or did everybody just forget how to make games, or the game's just too big? I mean, if games are too big, that it takes too much long to patch them or it takes 5 years to bring them out, guess what? Gamers and studios make the damn game smaller. Nobody needs to spend 120 effing hours on almost any game. I'm sorry. Unless you buy 2 games a year, games should be like 40 hours, I think, for most people. That's plenty. That's plenty, in my opinion. After that, it's like, move on. We got too many games to play. You know what I mean? I got a job, I got a wife, I got cats to look after. I got better things to do than spend, from 8 a.m. in the morning till fucking 12 o'clock at night playing games. You know what I mean? I gotta work for games, which is the weird thing about life. Now that you got a job and you can afford games, you got no time to play them. It's weird. It's weird how that works.
Yeah, I definitely do miss some of the pick up and play kind of games that you used to be able to get back in the day, especially with like sports games and stuff like that, like Blitz and NHL Hits, like NBA Jam, like just pick up and play quick
Yeah.
games. Like I miss even like some of the 360 games, like Marlow Briggs or
Yeah. Yeah.
or
Game
or let me see or like what's that Star Wars game Unleash or whatever.
Unleashed.
um yeah, I mean, like, dude, like some of those games were just pick up, play for a little bit, and it wasn't even like crazy long games or anything like that. They yeah, they weren't long at all. They were just like, see if you like this and play it, and then they'd have another one out in a year and a half. And it's like, once you just do it like that, let's segment it. So once you make it like 20, 30 hour game, and then make another one in a couple of years to add on to it, instead of trying to jam pack, like you said, 150 hours into one freaking into one freaking game. And then that's the only game you worked on this whole generation. And it's like, what the hell?
Let's not even talk about the other one, the collector's editions. Back in the day, you got a collector's edition. Some even came with the steel case. Now you're lucky to even get a game, even a digital one. You get the collector's edition, you get a steel book, and there's not even a disc in there. In most cases,
Oh
sometimes
man,
not
like
even a
the
code.
Jotnar,
Yeah.
like God of War Jotnar edition.
Oh,
Like,
you're gonna
how
give
the
me
hell do
a
you get
hey,
how do you get
for
a
what?
hammer? You get all these toys. You get like a necklace or a ring or something like that.
Yeah.
You grab the case and you open it up, and a little piece of paper just.
Yeah, like charge me an extra 20 and give me the damn game or something. But this is ridiculous. Like, most people, or give them option A, collector's edition with a game, or collector's edition without a game. But at
Yep.
least the game that comes with the steel disc is the game of some sorts with a pressed disc and shit, not just like a case for something you're just supposed to like what the heck? That's like giving condoms to a penisless guy. You know what I mean? It's like the same deal. Like, come on.
All right, so now we got to get to the other side of the question, because
Yeah.
you were doing some driving on that first half of it.
Oh, let me tell you,
Th-
man. Like I said, you can get me worked up on a lot of topics. I knew this last half of the show could have me here for an hour. You know,
oh man. But
that's
what's
why
the
some
dream?
people, dude. That's why some people in this community hate me though, because I am old school and I call it like I see it. I call it the way I see it. It might not be a popular opinion, but it's just again, it's just my opinion. Like you don't have to
Right.
take it that serious. You disagree with me, that's fine. But like I always tell it like I see it. I'm always honest. I'm not like and I don't say this for clicks or for any because anybody who knows me knows I stick by my guns. Every game I've ever said I wouldn't play or wouldn't buy, I never did. When I say I don't buy a Call of Duty or a Battlefield game, because like I said I wasn't going to buy 2042 because I had no campaign, guess what? I never bought it and I refused to buy it. I never every game I've ever said I wouldn't buy or play because it didn't have something, I have always stuck by my guns and done it the way I said. I don't go back on my word. I said I would never play Fortnite. I've never stepped into that game yet.
Me neither. Good. Congratulations. I
I
met
have
another
no interest
person
in
that
the game.
hasn't played that.
I have
Fantastic.
no
Good.
interest in it. It's a little more tempting now they got rid of the build crap, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, it's not my bag, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just not for me. Like it's the same thing when I look at like Marvel's Midnight Suns. I see the card and then turn based with it, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh, those are two things I don't like. Like there is no way I'm touching this game. And it's not to say that it's a bad game. It's just not my bag,
The only
right?
turn based I want to see is at a gangbang. Maybe I'll go in for that.
Oh my god. that was out of pocket, but that was funny. Um, all
Jacob
right,
Dugan's
so
in the chat. He appreciates my humor.
no, I appreciate it. I love it. It's funny.
Uh, uh,
But what was probably the dream come true, or what would be a dream come true in gaming for you in general?
well, a small dream come true would honestly be to make it to E3 someday. I've never been. I've always wanted to go. People say how good it is. And on top of it, like to be able to meet a lot of the people from this community, people I've gamed with, people that I've admired, people I've podcasted with would be amazing. Like to me, you guys are all celebrities. We're family. It's more than just jumping on a podcast. We all share the same passion, like we all have that similarity. We're all busting our hump doing the same thing. And this community has embraced me. There's so many great people out there, and I would love to meet a lot of the people I admired. And I've got people that say the same about me. The mag couldn't wait to meet me, and I'm just a regular person, but he came out to Niagara Falls. What was it 2 years ago or a year ago when I first went out? Yeah, over a year ago when I first went out. I finally got to meet him in the flesh. He's like one of the first people um, I podcasted with or known through the community that I got to meet, and we hit it off immediately. He's a great man. He's awesome. His wife's fun. We had a great time. So it's been twice now. I look forward to hopefully meeting him again next summer, and more people. Like just this is a community and it's family. Some of these people here I really dearly care about. I made great friendships. So that's on the small scale of things. Um, you know, I wish, I suppose sitting here openly, I wish that my channel would get to the point where, I could kind of, you know, either cancel half my hours at my job or go part time and make the other half doing podcasting. But I think I would have to dedicate a lot more time and efforts to making my podcast a lot better. I've been at this, like I said, man, since about 2013, 2014. And I'm not even at 1,800 subs. Like the first 1,000 were a grind, and the last couple hundred have been very, very tough. Taking a sabbatical was bad. It really just killed whatever momentum I had. It just kind of went, you know. But those are some of the dreams, love to meet the Xbox brass. Those guys are amazing. Like Phil Spencer, Aaron Greenberg, all those guys are just, I look up to them. I'm gonna sit there and kiss their ass or nothing like that. They're not gods. But they're amazing people because they're gamers first, and they're corporate guys too, but they're just nice down to earth guys, I just love the brand. I love Xbox. I love gaming in general. As you can see, I got a PlayStation hat and an Xbox shirt on here, and I'm proud of both. I love both platforms. The corporate shit is another story. There's lots of things that both companies do that I dislike or I like. They run their businesses kind of very differently, right? But at the end of the day, we're all here for the same reason, to play games and play damn good games and have fun. The rest of it is more cannon fodder. It's more like stuff to find something to talk about on our podcast. Otherwise, we'd just be here shooting the breeze, right? So I don't know. Like my dreams. I've lived a lot of my dreams in my life. I'm happy where I am, and I've got a couple of great podcasts. I'm part of an amazing community. I can't say enough, man.
That was fantastic. That was a nice way to put it all together because we have just reached the end of the show, and I really had a ball hanging out with you, Noof. Like, it was a really good time. We've been on here rocking for about 2.5
Yeah,
hours, a little
time
over
flies.
that, and it's just been it just felt very chill, relaxing, easy to talk to you, easy to joke around, hilarious. The voices were funny, even just the regular just conversations that we were having were they got to make me crack up and whatnot. You got the side of my face hurting a little extra right now because, like I said, I got that I gotta go get
Yeah,
a root canal tomorrow, and I've been trying to look as monotone as I possibly can, but you've been cracking me up, and it's hurt and it hurts, but it's funny, it's worth it, and I just laughed again and it hurts. But anyways, I really appreciate everybody for coming out. Remember to hit that like button if you haven't already. If you enjoy this type of stuff, please hit the subscribe button. Come back, check us out. I'm always going to be bringing out more people. I'd love to get Noof on the show that we do every Friday, but I know that might be a conflict with times because we do 3 o'clock Central, 4 o'clock Eastern on Fridays, and you're probably at work. So if you're not, then I'd love to get you on one of these times whenever you got time. I'm
yeah,
here for you. You just let me know when you can comfortably come on
yeah.
here, so I'm not knocking at your
Yeah,
door all the time.
yeah. So, sometimes I get Fridays off, and I'll kind of keep you posted. Or just ask me if I got a Friday because yeah, like I'm actually off tomorrow, believe it or not. So I plan to get a little bit of gaming in and probably a few chores. But yeah, that's it. Oh, and just for the record, so those people know, yeah, look, I do have teeth. Okay. That was literally one of the funniest questions I've ever been asked since we're doing podcasts. I literally had somebody sent me a DM and said, Noof, I got to know something. Do you have teeth? Because they said when you're podcasting, you look like you have no teeth, and I'm like, I guess yeah, the way the camera angle is, people do see my bottoms, but a lot of times my top ones don't show through, and I'm like, yes, man, I do have teeth. They might not be the perfect teeth in the world, but I have teeth. But that question cracked me the hell up, man, and I had to answer. I still laugh about it to this day. Do you have teeth? Because it looks like you have none. That's pretty funny.
I think it's funny that somebody had the gall to ask you that, though. That's wild.
That's funny. That's great.
Hey, you got teeth. You look like a toothless motherfucker. No, I'm just, but the very last thing I'm gonna have you do, which I have every single person do before we actually get out of here, is I want you to tell me and describe gaming to me in just 3 words.
Here it is. God damn awesome.
Fantastic. I love it when people make it come together. I love it when people make it come together instead of being like fun, awesome, delightful. You made that come together. So that was really dope. One last time, let everybody know where they can find you so we can get the heck up out of here.
Yeah. Like I said, guys, bear with me. I'm not a perfect human being. Most of us aren't, but I do have fun with this. I love the community. I love gaming, and I love doing my podcast. Like I said, a lot of times I'm misunderstood because again, I have some hard stances on things, and it's not that I hate people. This is the one I always get. Okay, and I don't want to straggle this on, but I always go, Newf, why do you hate Game Pass? And I keep saying I don't hate Game Pass. I think it's. Can we quote this now? Okay, because it's going to be asked again. It's amazing. It's the best value in gaming. I'm so happy that people love it, that they play it, that they're getting tons of value out of it. It's amazing. Okay. It's just not for me. I don't have the time or the energy to play even 1/4 the games that's in there. Yes, it makes financial sense, and I make 0 sense as to why I shouldn't even have it. Because I probably spend more on a couple physical games every year than I would spend on the entire subscription to Game Pass, and I get that. But I buy what I want, I play what I want when I want, and I don't like being tied into subscriptions. And if you're wondering, I literally pay for literally one subscription outside of Xbox Live Games with Gold, okay, which I pay the one straight fee. I buy the little card at the store and redeem the fucking code. I pay for one thing, and that is Amazon Prime right now. Okay. And there's two reasons. Because one, I get great deals on my packages and they show up quickly. And two, some really good movies and shit on there that I really enjoy. That's it. I don't even have Netflix anymore. I try to stay away from subscriptions. I'd rather go to the store and buy my 4K Blu-rays and come home and watch it. That's it. Um, so I just want to make that clear. But I think Game Pass is great. I know why Xbox is doing it. It makes them a ton of money. It's going to make them an absolute boatload in the next 2 or 3 years when a lot of these games finally drop. There's no better time to be a gamer. No matter what system you have, there's great games to play. If you own them all, my God, there's too many to play. But anyway, to find me, look, Gaming After Dark, Tuesday evenings, 10 Eastern, 8 Mountain Time. Sunday mornings, Good Morning Xbox. If you like a positive, upbeat, Xbox-centric podcast, that's the one to go to. Great panel over there. Again, that's Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern. It's great because it's gaming. It's a Good Morning Xbox. It's while you're eating your breakfast, and it comes on before the Iron Lords podcast. Shout out to those amazing guys. That's why I picked it earlier, because I didn't want to be stepping on Cognito and King and all those great guys over there. Wanted to get out of the way. So I figure you get up in the morning anyway. You're probably eating some eggs, having a coffee. Come over and shoot the shit with us and check out Good Morning Xbox. It's a great panel. Needs a little more love. Again, Sunday mornings, 9 a.m. Eastern and 7 a.m. Mountain Time. So it's really early for me. I got to get up early and get the coffee going, but it's a lot of fun. And thank you guys for your chat. The chat's amazing. A lot of familiar faces who actually come over and check out my show. And to you, what can I say, brother? This is a big surprise invitation, and I loved every minute. I love talking history about gaming, and I certainly love talking about some of those experiences. They get me riled up, if you haven't figured that already, Ham.
Oh
And
yeah, I
I look
loved
forward
it.
to getting you over on GAD here real soon. I think you're going to have a good time over there, and we'd love to have you, especially if we got some hot topics. I'll bring you in. Chat, you're awesome. Thanks again, Ham, for having me. And hopefully people will watch this on the replay and give you some great feedback. And all the best. You're going to hit 500, brother. We'll get you there. And have a great night. And thanks again for having me.
Thank you so much. And to everybody, thank you once more for showing up, showing out, being active in the chat. You guys are awesome. You guys, I really appreciate you all and for coming in here week in and week out, showing your love, respect, and giving me your time and ear and whatnot. But you know what it is. I got to get up out of here. Got to get Newf going so he can go relax and do his thing. I'm finna hop on the Callisto Protocol. I just hit level 2 on my PlayStation rewards. Let's go. But I guess that should be a little bit more better service this time, maybe. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But anyways, as you guys know, it's your boy Ham Solo from TSWS Gaming. This is Behind Them Sticks of the show, featuring Newf Nukem on today's episode. And as you guys know, as I say at the end of every podcast, make sure you guys keep it gaming or keep it moving. Peace out, y'all. Welcome to the Behind Them Sticks podcast, brought to you by TSWS Gaming.